Ready when you are now.
Yeah, just waiting for the signal on my phone. Okay, Mr. Mayor, you are go.
Right. I declare the council meeting of the 7th of September 2021 open at 7:01. Just a reminder that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Please be patient. Electronic meetings are different to face-to-face, a little bit more difficult. You'll be invited to speak by the meeting coordinator, myself, or raise your hand and try not to speak over others. First of all, apologies for absence.
Mr. Mayor, we have no apologies.
Thank you very much. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak this council meeting, that you ensure that you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures
Recording in progress.
Very good. Got it. During this council meeting, a recording will be made for administrative purposes. There is no prayer. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at this council meeting?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Whitten?
I'll be declaring an interest in item 2.2 of the PDC. I own property in the heritage listed area, and also item 5.4, the Orange 360 request. I'm a representative on behalf of council on that board, but because they're ASIC listed directorships, I'll be declaring a non-pecuniary interest and taking no part in that decision.
I will do as such too in item 5.5. So that's Jeff Whitten, Reg Kidd. What was the other one, Councillor Whitten? Sorry.
In the development, the PDC, it's item 2.2, the Heritage Control Plan.
2.2. Right. Thank you very much for that. Any others?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hamling.
Yeah, item 5.4, as I am now a paying member of Orange 360. So I'll declare it interest. Our business is a paying member of Orange 360.
Thank you, Councillor Hamling. Any others? I can't see any others there on the screen. There's not. The council meeting now adjourns for the conduct of the open forum. And tonight we have 5 speakers. The first speaker is Mr. Brendan Stewart. It's for PDC item 2.2, Orange Local Environmental Plan Amendment 28, Heritage Amendment Post-Exhibition Report. Thanks, Mr. Stewart. Ready when you are, Mr. Stewart.
Kath Thomas, can I ask why Neil Jones is to be seen on screen, please?
We've got Andrew Rawson and Neil Jones on screen there, and we've got Brendan on screen. The only one we haven't got there is Nick at this stage.
Yep. Okay, so we're putting all speakers into the open, is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Okay. Yep. No, that's fine. I'm just texting here.
Nick might be just running a fraction late or something.
Yes. Okay. Let's go to the next speaker.
Okay. Over to you, Brendan. Can you hear okay, Brendan?
I can hear fine. Is this coming through okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So yeah, thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak this evening. Tonight I'm going to talk a little, and if we're going to be honest, have a bit of a rant about the proposed heritage amendment to the Orange LEP, specifically expansion of the HCAs, that's the heritage conservation areas. You might remember last time I covered this subject, we talked about pandas at the zoo at Dubbo, among other topics. Now, we all know the drill. Step 1, council makes a recommendation for something. Then there's step 2, which is someone in the community doesn't like it and writes their sternly worded letter. Council then proceeds to step 3 and responds to that letter with, we think you're wrong because of this and this and this. And now we're at step 4, which is me at a council meeting saying, actually, nothing I pointed out in my letter was really answered. And I'm hoping that tonight you guys can have a bit of a discussion. That's step 5. And then take this back to the department at council, which is step 6, which is something that doesn't really have to be anything more than just a please explain. So if we're going to have a look at how council's response was adequate in addressing my argument, I'd like to have a look at my letter to council, which is labelled as submission 6. Can be found on page 80 of the agenda for the Planning and Development Committee. The response from council can be found on page 15 of the same agenda. And that's under submission 2. You might note that the numbers submission 2, submission 6 don't match up. It's probably just a result of someone phoning in their work. Apologies if that happens to be a bit of a theme over the next few minutes. So to their credit, the first 3 paragraphs make up a fairly accurate summary of my letter. So I raised 3 points of concern. I said, firstly, there's a lack of public consultation. Secondly, there's going to be additional fees and costs to residents and to council. And lastly, and most significantly, there hasn't been any assessment of what dwellings in the proposed heritage conservation areas actually contribute to heritage value. So lack of public consultation. Council here seems to want a gold star for admitting that they've done the absolute bare minimum. The very first time that residents of the proposed HCAs were notified that a new HCA was being considered was well after the heritage review process was completed. There's a bit of a chicken and egg here, as it can be argued that it was the review process that determined the HCAs, but really this was years in the making, and council knew where these new HCAs were going to be. Less than 20 people attended the workshops during the review process, and most of them were members of the Heritage Association, which was actually invited by council. A simple letterbox drop or a social media post saying, hey, we're thinking we might expand the existing heritage conservation areas around here, and if you live in these areas, you might want to drop us some feedback as we're doing a heritage review. Then there was a post-exhibition heritage study review at the council meeting last December. I was only notified about this being an agenda item less than 6 hours before the meeting, despite me providing a submission besides just putting it in the agenda. Fortunately, I was able to catch the February meeting. That's when we talked about pandas and the zoo. Common sense prevailed then, with the item being deferred. Unfortunately, the amendment was snuck back in the April meeting, which I didn't notice, and wasn't able to deliver another rousing speech or provide a few talking points, so it got through without discussion. And then most recently, there's this agenda being written up and finalised on the 26th of August. That's nearly 2 weeks ago, but I'm only notified of it last Friday. I've got better things to do on my weekend than put this argument together. So yes, congratulations, council, for achieving the bare minimum. You've ticked the boxes for community consultation, but have you really consulted the community? You've had contributions from maybe 15 residents that are in no way representative of the community, and you've come up with something that impacts several thousand people. So my second point was additional costs. There isn't too much to discuss here. The response from council can be paraphrased as, yeah, that's what you get for living in a heritage area. As far as the extra cost to council, which, spoiler alert, equals ratepayers, note the line on the bottom of the second last paragraph on page 15. It's, council may wish to review funding availability for these programs in future budgets. So how did we get to so late in the day and so far along with the process that no one stopped to consider the finances of this? You're about doubling the number of residences impacted by HCA, but the work required by council's contracted heritage advisor from Sydney's North Shore, who is also the author of the Heritage Review, their work's going to be so much more because there hasn't actually been an assessment of individual dwellings in this area. And that brings us to the third point, which I raised with council. So no, it's mostly maps with vague talk of sometimes questionable history and very little commentary on how the area as a whole has been assessed as significant. The crux of the assessment seems to rely on the sentence contains building stock of certain styles. Now, a rational person might then ask the question of, well, how many of these buildings actually contribute heritage value? And that's the main question I've been asking for the last 12 months. No one can answer because I'm sure no one's bothered to do what's required in assessing the heritage significance of these areas. And if someone could just make a colour-coded map showing the contributory items, which is pretty standard for a heritage assessment that hasn't been phoned in, I'd be more than happy. And if you can't show...
Mr. Stewart, I'll just have to get an extension of time.
Yeah, I extend. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Munro. Second, please. Councillor New, all in favour? Just your hands, please.
Thank you.
Against, thank you. Sorry, Mr. Stewart. Continue.
That's fine. Thank you. Where was I? Yeah, so no one can answer my question about how many of these buildings actually contribute heritage value. I'm sure no one's bothered to do the assessment. I haven't recently been down all the streets in the pros HCAs for obvious lockdown reasons, but of the few I know, less than half the houses are either originals of the period mentioned in the assessment or haven't undergone significant renovation or modification that negates any contribution to heritage value. It's like someone saying, here's a lovely box of chocolates I'm giving you. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, but these are mostly dirt. And they're like, yeah, but some of them are chocolates, so I'm going to shove them down your throat. So councillors, please choose to be progressive on this issue, or at least have the discussion. That's step 5, remember. We've seen you recently choosing not to conserve a few hundred trees that don't contribute or have any real value to the community, and it's more outweighed by the positives. So expansion of the HCAs would be restrictive of development options, all the while when we're in an unprecedented housing shortage. It's increasing costs to residents through higher insurance premiums, ultimately increasing rates as a direct result of higher costs to council. And it just doesn't pass the pub test because it's not a Federation era pub. It's a 1980s prefab pub with a dodgy extension out the back. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hashtag rant over.
Thanks very much, Mr. Stewart. As the chairman of the Heritage Advisory Committee, I found that quite entertaining, and I look forward to having you come in once we've lit it. I'd love to have the discussion with you.
That sounds good.
Our next speaker is Mr. Nick King, and that's for PDC item 2.5 DA 481/202, 345 Ophir Road. Thanks, Mr. King.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address council. The reason I'm doing so tonight is to express echo support for the recommendation from council staff that the 3 old growth eucalypts growing on the site of the 345 Ophir Road proposed subdivision be retained. The council has given pretty good reason, and I'd just like to reiterate some of the reasons why these trees are so valuable and why they should be retained and they should be conserved. Basically, one of the reasons is that there's 3 of them there. They're estimated to be between 150 and 300 years old, and that's pretty significant because trees that age are basically boarding houses for a myriad of biodiversity. They do contain many hollows that are suitable for nesting sites for a variety of birds. They also provide shelter for mammals, native birds, mammals, reptiles, arachnids and insects, which basically make up the web of biodiversity, which basically as a community we should be seeking to maintain, bearing in mind that today is Threatened Species Day. So it's highly appropriate that we discuss this particular issue. Also, that the hollows we must realise that basically these hollows that are formed in these trees are formed very slowly. They take up to about 100 years to form. Because it takes so long for these trees to provide these hollows, it's really important real estate for the birds and animals that would depend on them. Also, we must realise that because of land clearing, drought, fires, these trees are becoming scarcer. And the ones that we got, they're very valuable and we should retain them at all costs. And also I know that the proponent was talking about replacement planting, offsets and things like that. Well, it's not realistic to do offset planting for a 100-year-old tree because it takes 100 years for the tree to get what we've already got. So basically, a lot of times when you look at DAs and trees in subdivisions, the proponent often regards the tree as an obstacle to do what they want. And I know that basically the pioneers back in the olden days saw the same thing, and we know better though. We know that these trees are not obstacles, they're assets. They're assets to biodiversity, they're assets to our community. And I know that Orange City Council has gone to great lengths in lots of cases to preserve trees in other subdivisions. Ribbon Gums is the Ribbon Gums subdivision is a good example. And there's some thriving old growth trees in that area. And I can quote others as well. So well done for that. And I think council should continue with their policy to retain these trees. And so it's really important that also to retain the trees, it's also important to, as is recommended, that the lots 6, 11 and 12 of the subdivision be dedicated as public open space, so that those trees can have an environment in which they can continue to survive. So basically, and it's important, I think, that council does preserve these trees, because they're sending, in doing so, they're sending a strong message to the developers, to future people who want to develop in Orange, and also to the community that Orange City Council does favour development, but it does favour sustainable development that protects and conserves valuable natural biodiversity assets. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Mr. King. It's great to see you giving accolades to council. We're all very, very pleased. Our next speaker will be Mr. Neil Jones, PDC item 2.5, same DA, 345 Ophir Road. Thanks, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and councillors, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you tonight on that same development application of 345 Ophir Road. I would like, first of all, to commend council staff for their excellent report and the recommendations and the conditions of consent which are contained therein. And I sincerely hope that all councillors will support the council staff recommendations tonight. I would also like to acknowledge the applicant's general adherence to the Leeds Parade residential release master plan, and that presented a conceptual layout of residential lots, streets, and public open space, and I acknowledge that. But with the exception of several important parts of their proposal, which have reduced the amount of public open space in favour of an increase in the number of residential lots. It is pleasing, however, to see that council staff have made recommendations and conditions of consent to address this issue. The applicant has proposed to reduce the size of one public reserve and to remove 2 other public reserves. The applicant has proposed to reduce the size of a public reserve on lot 65, which is in the southeastern corner of the site, to enable the creation of 7 additional residential lots. So reducing the size virtually in half of that designated public reserve through a drainage line, and that is and submitted that in return, suitable public open space would be provided elsewhere. But this, unfortunately, is not what has happened. While council staff, in this case, have supported the applicant, council has considered the applicant's proposed removal of a further public reserve on the corner lot 76, which is indicated on the master plan, in favour of another residential lot. So the master plan is showing a pocket park. The applicant has said, no, I'm indicating a residential lot on this, this pocket park. But council staff have recommended that it be retained as a public reserve and pocket park. So this is to be commended, and I hope that you'll support that. The applicant has further proposed the removal of a public reserve pocket park and 2 cul-de-sacs on the northwestern side of the site, thereby gaining an additional 5 residential lots. So the applicant's doing pretty well. Council is therefore to be commended for its very fair and reasonable recommendation and consent condition that the 3 residential lots, 6, 11 and 12, be deleted and be dedicated as replacement public open space and enabling the retention of the 3 significant eucalypt trees that are on 2 of those allotments. So it is a very strong recommendation from council staff that in lieu of the increased additional lots that the applicant has gained, that it would only be fair and reasonable to have these 3 lots dedicated as public open space. And that is in a position that's on an elevated and fairly level site, when much of the whole development site is quite undulating and some quite steep. So while it is pleasing to see that the major drainage lines on the low-lying wet and swampy land in the south of the site have been retained as public reserve, and this is wonderful to see that the developer hasn't, or the applicant hasn't proposed development there, and obviously it is much more suitable to remaining as a wetland. And other public reserve drainage lines have also been lost to planned roadways and residential lots. So, you know, the applicant's doing pretty well, but it's very good to see that that major drainage line on that low-lying southern area is being retained as public reserve. In a development as large as this proposal, appropriate public open space and parkland is critical for community amenity and wellbeing. And I think we've all observed just how this has been illustrated by the role that our wonderful parks and reserves have played during these difficult lockdown times. And so, and so apart from that important public amenity, they have significant environmental benefits. It is of concern, however,
Mr. Jones, I'll have to get an extension. You're going on a bit here. We need a thanks, Councillor Munro. Seconder, Councillor Miletto. All in favour? Hands, please. Jeez, holy dooly. Just have to have a count here. 1. It's sufficient. You just got there, Mr. Jones. Keep going.
Thanks. I've got about 30 seconds to go, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, councillors. So it is, however, concerned that more attention has not been given to the provision of level and accessible parkland that can meet important recreational needs of a wide mix of families, young children, older persons, many of whom have ability issues, who will soon be living in this new suburb. I really urge you to support the staff recommendations for approval as presented in the report and the conditions of consent as outlined. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Jones. Our next speaker is Mr. Rawson, and it's Council Item 5.3, Operational Plan 2020-21, the Mount Canobolas Mountain Bike Park. Thanks, Mr. Rawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the councillors for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Canobolas Conservation Alliance. There is nothing actually much in the operational plan in that section 2.3.5.1. In fact, there's very little information that's been provided about the progress of this project across the board. 3 reports were tabled at the July meeting. There was a progress report from Roxanne Betts, 6 maps produced by the consultants, by Dirt Art, and a constraint summary report dated in March of this year by the Environmental Factor. That constraint summary report indicated other reports that were produced by the consultants, a 3 set of consultants, and those included an overall concept plan provided by Dirt Art and an archaeologist's report provided by Apex Archaeology. And presumably there would also be a finalised constraints report from the Environmental Factor, as well as a preliminary environmental impact assessment, which would be the minimum required for any potential submission to planning if council was still determined to apply for this project to be considered a state significant development. There appears to be no business plan, although the summary constraints report mentions that the Dirt Art concept plan includes a business summary. So based on all the above, I'd like to ask council a number of questions. When are elected councillors and the public able to see the finalised reports from the 3 consultants? Have the consultants in fact finished their work? And if not, how close are they to finishing? Thirdly, how much money has already been expended on this process, given that council had allocated $500,000 for these consultancies? The consultants were engaged to provide information sufficient to consider further progress, not the decision itself. That's up to you. That's up to the council, up to the councillors and to the public. Given that the consultancies were paid for by public money, they should be made public. These reports should be made public to allow scrutiny and further decision before any further steps in the process. For example, have they had any independent external review? All the fanfare surrounding the consultancies was to prepare the paperwork to get things, quote, shovel ready. The council has presumably spent a considerable amount of money on the project, and the project is nowhere near that point and could never be. So my fourth question is council aware of the cost and time required to take this to the next stages if they pursue trails in the conservation area? Does council realise how far from shovel ready they are? State significant developments are designed to weigh up the costs and benefits of developments that may have detrimental impacts on the environment. If an SSD is sought for a development in a critical environment like the conservation area, the first question asked by DPIE is going to be, does it need to be there? Is there an alternative site? Like if it was a mining development, mine proposals can claim, well, that's where the ore is, that's where we have to dig. But in this case, there's no justification for a mountain bike park on Mount Canobolas, which could cause, in fact, would cause serious and irrevocable damage to a gazetted conservation area of immense ecological and heritage value, especially when there is a perfect alternative immediately next door. I mean, we know it's suitable because the Mountain Bike Club are already in there putting trails all the way through. Trails with names like the Trail of Awesomeness. You know, they think it's a great idea to be in those areas. So if council decides to continue this process of going down the SSD path, what are the next steps? Well, the next should be a submission, including the preliminary environmental impact assessment done by the environmental scientists, and that needs to be sent to planning requesting a SEAR, which is the Secretary's Environmental Assessment Requirements, which are very detailed requirements for the next and most extensive environmental impact assessment. You think you've done environmental impact assessment, they've just done a desktop study. For all that money, they've just done a desktop study. The real environmental assessment comes next, which costs money.
Mr. Olsen, I'm going to get an extension of time here. Someone move that. Councillor.
Yeah, I'll second
it. Second, Councillor Duffy. All in favour, hands please. Thanks, Mr. Olsen.
Thank you so much. I'm almost finished. This next step could take years to complete because it would have to involve more field work over many seasons to get a really good sense of the environmental impact. And the costs of that extra assessment are going to have to be borne by council and ultimately by ratepayers. And based on the costs of the current consultancies, we're talking hundreds of thousands of more dollars have to be expended for that process. It's highly likely that if there's any final approval, if it's ever given, it would require offsets to be created because of the impact on the threatened species on the mountain. There's no equivalent Mount Canobolas where you can create the offsets. So the only option is to pay money. And for the number of threatened species there are on the mountain, we're talking many millions of dollars of offset requirement that would have to be paid for by council before you even put a spade in the ground, before you even spend money on the actual development, many millions of dollars. And I'd ask the question, for what? What would you get out of that? You would actually get desecration of the most important tourist asset that we have in our area. The other thing that councillors should be made aware of is that the conservation area has been nominated as an area of outstanding biodiversity, an AOBV under the Biodiversity Conservation Act, and it meets the criteria for the new designation as an area of intergenerational significance under the National Parks Act. And you should also be made aware that it has been nominated by Indigenous representatives within our community as an Aboriginal place under the National Parks Act. So council needs to be aware there's a lot of barriers in place if you are considering putting trails into the conservation area. A much cheaper, easier, quicker option exists right now in the state forest, which is a win-win for the region. You can have the conservation area attracting all the people that attracts, and and I've almost finished.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. So I implore council to take a breath, consider the costs and constraints, ask questions of council staff about these reports, get them out into the public arena so that a better decision can be made, and also whether or not it's worthwhile expending any more money, public money on this scheme. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Rawson, for your opinions. I would just like to say that I have the utmost confidence in our staff, and that's why we're going down this path at the moment and actually having a look at it. I'm just quite pleased that some research work is being done on the mountain to highlight the good attributes that we have on the mountain and the problems that we actually have on the mountain. And I think that's up to our professional staff and the councillors who now and in the future to go over that materials and make decisions. I think those questions that you put forward, certainly they will go to the our CEO. Some of those are operational things that don't need a response at this stage, but others I'm sure he'll respond to you in the near future. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, we now resume the council meeting. Item 2 is mayoral minutes. There are none. Item 3 is confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of August.
Move.
Move, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Nugent.
Nugent, seconded Councillor Munro. All in favour, hands please. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Against, in case there's anyone against? No, everyone's in favour. The council meeting adjourns now for the conduct of the policy committees. First is planning and development, chaired by Councillor Turner. Thanks, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It gives me pleasure to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting at 7:35. An interesting note, we're all still here. When is it going to end? Anyway, moving on to declarations of interest. We have a declaration of interest from Councillor Whitten on item 2.2. I don't believe there are any others. So I will go on to 2.1, items approved under the delegated authority of council.
Move, Councillor Hamling.
Councillor Hamling and seconded Councillor Duffy. Yes. Any discussion on these items? Being no discussion, I'll put 2.1. All those in favour, raise your hands. All those against? I can only see 5 of us, so I assume everyone's in favour. The motion is carried. Item 2.2, the Orange Local Environmental Plan Amendment 28.
Just a question.
I have a mover, Councillor Nugent.
Just a question, please.
You're seconding Councillor Miletto? Or?
I'll second.
I have a question.
Second, Councillor Kidd. Right, Councillor Miletto, question.
Yeah, thank you. Just before I make a decision, just with regard to with the submission number 1, Heritage New South Wales, it indicates that state significance should be amended to have local significance. I'm just wondering whether that's been done or
not. Who'd like to answer that? Mr. CEO, or
Mr. Hodges is here tonight. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Hodges, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the we've got to this position by many investigations. I don't agree with the comment saying there's been none. Council would recall we appointed David Scobie from David Scobie Architects and also Adaptive Architects locally as well, engaged an adjunct committee to carry out research into the items. Keep in mind that a heritage conservation area, which this relates to, is the broad cross-section of all the items together, as at all the houses. So some add to the conservation area, some don't do anything to it, and others indeed detract from it. So that's all we're trying to do here. It's not identifying individual items in heritage items. In some cases it does, but across the board, conservation area is just the general group of them, saying in the whole context they add some value. That's all we're trying to protect here. And all the committee, the adjunct committee and the experts we've had on board have agreed to.
Thanks, Mr. Hodges.
Councillor Turner, can I speak?
Yeah, Councillor Kidd. Yes, go ahead.
Look, as chairman of the Heritage Committee, I find it quite offensive, some of the remarks that were made earlier. I do know that it was public consultation. I do know people were invited. I attended at least 2 of those I know. I know the Heritage Advisory Committee, which has got a good broad section of people on it, spent a lot of time and a lot of hours going through it. And I spent at least 2 days, almost 2 days, or 2.5 days, I should say, with our Heritage Advisor, particularly in 2 areas, actually having a look at. And I just question sometimes now that getting this constant thing that there's no consultation or no opportunity to have input. This seems to be a continuing theme now, which I reject personally quite strongly. And I can assure you there has been, and this hasn't been going on the last 6 months. This has been a process that's been going on for a long, long time now.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd. Any other comments? Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just 2 quick points. My first point is I want to agree with the Mayor on the consultation process. I remember clearly a number of years ago when we were having further discussions on the Heritage Precinct area that myself and Councillor Taylor were yelling out for this to be expanded, and that whole process started quite a number of years ago. But one of my main comments is if we're going to expand these areas and make them a heritage area, I really do think we need to address the issue of footpaths in these areas if we're going to expect people to walk around them. And I just hope that why isn't that addressed in the whole process? Because I mean, you know, some of them are absolutely terrible and have deteriorated something shockingly.
Councillor Turner, I think that's completely out of order. We're talking about heritage. We're not talking about footpaths and roads. You'll try and get the roads and footpaths in any way you possibly can.
I think the footpaths are being done up around the CBD area, around the heritage area.
I'll leave it, Mr. Mayor, other than saying I think we've all had comments from different people on how the footpaths in Orange in general are improving. There's still more to go, but we have made great advancements. Councillor Nugent.
Vote grabber.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I just want to acknowledge Mr. Stewart's presentation. I think that this is the 3rd time he's addressed council on this issue, and I think it gets more entertaining each time. But I don't necessarily agree with everything that he said. I do recognise that this piece of work, this heritage assessment report, has been out for public comment, at least 3 times, I think. It's come to council at least 3 times. It's been in the paper a lot. It's been discussed, reported in the paper a lot. And I think, yes, people have some concerns, some fears about their property being included in the heritage conservation area. But I think the council report and the council staff response addresses those concerns, those fears quite well. You know, we're at the final step in what has been, as the Mayor said and Councillor Duffy said, a very long process. And I'm happy for that process to go to that final stage where it goes back to Department of Planning for inclusion in the LEP.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Any other speakers? Because I can't see everyone.
You've got Councillor Munro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I agree with this wholeheartedly, but I would like to ask a question, and maybe whoever the relevant staff member might be, in regards to cost for a resident. See, if there is a house in this area that is really, it's deemed in a heritage precinct, but it's not a heritage item, as far as a succinct one that's been pointed out by council that's a heritage item, and I think that should be that there would be in that area some there that would be a heritage item that's worth keeping. The ones that aren't, that have to go through the extra bureaucracy, you might say, to get something done to their home, if it's a renovation or a demolition or whatever it may be. Is there a way that we can help people in regards to the cost of that? Because you've got to get planners, you've got to get consultants to prove that the place was whatever, and it puts an impost onto the people that own the property that want to do some sort of renovation or development to it. I really think that maybe staff should, if there's a way, that cost could be borne by either us or an authority, the Heritage Authority or something, because the people that own homes there, that's what they're frightened about. They can't do things with their property. So I just wanted to ask the question, please, is there a way that we can somehow even out the cost or the way it happens in our council process that can alleviate those fears? Because they're the main issues that people have. I can't pull that wall down. I've got to go through these, you know, if you get a consultant from Sydney to come and check, it's not something that's really important.
You've got Mr. Hodges there will reply.
How do we alleviate those fears? That's what I'd like to ask.
Mr. Hodges, you want to answer that one?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's a bit of a misnomer about the additional cost. In some cases, it actually makes it easier to do those minor repairs that you're talking about, like the removal of walls, changing paintwork, that type of thing. So there is a process to actually get exemption from the need to get a DA, to development application. So they can avoid that through this process. We still provide that free heritage advice where our staff and in some cases with our consultant as well, the heritage advisor, can go and meet people and discuss what's being proposed in that initial stage. In terms of work beyond the scope of that, that's when it gets larger. And that's when you'd expect that the development application process would kick in anyway, as would any normal house. So another point you raised there was about if it wasn't a heritage significant building itself, and that's where I was talking about earlier. Sometimes you do have in heritage conservation areas buildings that detract from the conservation area, like you would know streets that are quite pretty and all of a sudden there's one out of character. This doesn't necessarily restrict redevelopment of those areas. It's got to be done in context. So it doesn't mean they've got to rush off to Sydney and get those done. A lot of the time the local designers come up with the plans to redevelop those sites. So there was a fact sheet that went out with the information that was available to the public, and it did actually answer that specific question about, is there an additional cost with that? Beyond that, the value of these areas being in heritage conservation areas, the real estate market actually increases, as you appreciate. So, so there's a bit of swings and roundabouts with it, but I think they're looked after pretty well in the process.
Thanks, Mr. Hodges. Any other query? Councillor Hamling.
I was just going to say, I move we put it.
I'll second that.
Okay, and it's been seconded by
Councillor
Councillor Duffy. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'll put the motion of 2.2. All those in favour? I assume it's unanimous because I can't see everyone.
Yep.
And the motion is carried. 2.3, Orange Local Environmental Plan, Amendment 31.
Happy to move it, Mr. Chair.
Moved
Councillor
Councillor
Nugent.
Nugent and seconded by
I'll second that. Councillor Kidd.
Councillor Kidd.
Yep.
Any discussion? There being no discussion.
Just to say, if I may, I think this is just fantastic for that part of town, actually, the time, and shows that we're serious about looking after that area. It's struggled a little bit with some of the movements out of that area, and I think this is a great way forward, actually, and it's already creating some interest already.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd. Any other comments? I will put the motion. All those in favour? Assuming it's unanimous again, we go to 2.4, 185 Leeds Parade, post-exhibition report.
Move it, Councillor Hamling.
Councillor Hamling moves, seconded Councillor Duffy.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
No.
There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Unanimous again.
Unanimous again. Carried. 2.5.
5. Yep.
Development application 345 Ophir Road.
Happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Chair. Councillor Nugent.
Move Councillor Nugent, seconded Councillor Duffy. Any discussion? Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I need to take a couple of pills, but I find myself agreeing with the couple of the speakers as regards to the eucalyptus trees and probably the area space around them as well. But one of the things I'd like to, when we talk about preserving these big eucalyptus trees, whether it be yellow box, white box, or gum, we saw where a development with a childcare centre over there in William Maker Drive, where these were kept in a park area and they've fallen on an area where the actual children play. That need to be taken into account in the area around there. And we also saw the same thing happen over there in Spring Street, where a tree come down into the play area of one of the childcare centres. So we need to be very mindful of that when we preserve these big trees, because I don't really believe that they belong in a city. I mean, sure, don't chop them down for the sake of chopping them down, but if we can preserve them, we need to preserve a significant area around them, and that so people can walk around in safety and protect their assets, whatever the case may be. But the only other issue that I see could be an issue is the actual traffic flow from Leeds Parade across to Ophir Road. But I'm sure that will be addressed in the whole process.
Yeah, I agree, Councillor Duffy. That is an issue. Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Turner, Mr. Chair. Look, yeah, this is, as both speakers, Mr. King and Mr. Jones said, this is, I think, a pretty good result. The retention of those 3 eucalypts, and just noting Councillor Duffy's concerns, but they are on sort of separate lots, is my understanding, and those lots will remain in public ownership. I think that's the case, and they won't be, developed. Now, what they end up getting used for, whether they get planted out, and they might be used for passive recreation, they might be used for an off-leash area, dog area, park, I'm not sure. Balanced against that is the loss of this, or the 7 additional lots that the developer has requested and has been recommended in the by the staff report. Down on the down near the drainage line, there's a bit of a loss of green space there. But I think Mr. Jones made some good points about in these new developments. We're talking about 211 residential developments. There are probably a number of young families moving in there, and there's not a whole lot of green space in the developments itself. There's some down in the southwest corner, and some, I think, around up in the northeast corner, but not a lot in between. And lot 2, presumably, of this Englobo development will at some stage be developed as well. So we're talking a substantial increase in population out there, and I do have concerns about the the capacity in these subdivisions to provide appropriate amounts of green space for passive recreation as well as active recreation further down the track. So I'm not sure what we can do about that. I'm not sure whether the staff have any might have any comment, but I'm happy to support this particular DA in the subdivision, but I do want to note those concerns.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Is there any other speakers?
Yeah, Councillor Turner, if I may, just on that access and that road going down onto Ophir Road, that will be discussed further, won't it? It won't be just like the what's name maps on here now. There'll be further discussion on traffic flow, won't there?
Oh, I'm sure there will be as it further develops. But Councillor Kidd, I raised the issue with you today, and I've also raised the issue with Mr. Hodges. I'd like to ask him now at this meeting. I do have some concerns that under the recommendation, it's my understanding that Miriam Drive is 24 metres wide, which has been developed as part of the road that eventually will go right through to Ophir Road. But under this recommendation, the council staff are recommending that traffic be diverted into Scarborough Drive, which is only 18 metres wide. And I know there has been a number of letters of concern from people in Scarborough Drive, Avenue, or whatever it is, that the traffic is going to be diverted down their street initially. It may be corrected with further development later on the pretext that it's going to slow traffic down. So I'd like Mr. Theakstone to make a comment on, will Miriam Drive still be open under this first subdivision, or will the traffic be forced to go down Scarborough Street?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We gave this a fair bit of consideration at the time of the assessment of the DA from an engineering lenses. We did note one of the benefits of having the link road moved up towards the neighbourhood centre certainly gave more presence to the neighbourhood centre, and obviously would make it more successful. In terms of mitigating concerns, there's probably a number of measures that we've put in by a number of conditions of consent. Firstly, there's a roundabout at the intersection of Miriam and I'll call Road 1 being the road that does traverse north-south and around the neighbourhood centre. Secondly, as a condition of consent, we've asked that a roundabout be put at the intersection of Miriam and Road 1. So there'd be two roundabouts, one there at Scarborough and Road 1 and one at Miriam and Road 1. As a condition of consent, we've also asked for the road there of Road 1 to be widened to 24 metres between those two roundabouts. And you'll note there on, let's say, figure 26 of page 376, there's a little, what I'll call a ransom lot, and it's denoted as, or described as Lot 1 in DP 548053. I believe it's owned by the university at the moment. So this subdivision won't link Scarborough Drive to the existing subdivision because there's of that Lot 1 there is a blocking lot. When and if ever that that lot does come up for subdivision, we'll put a speed hump there to deter people actually driving down that 18-metre road, and believe with the 24-metre road going from the link road to the roundabouts and then out to Leeds Parade via Miriam Drive. Most of the people will use the 24-metre road and not have to zigzag in and out of parked cars.
So, Mr. Theakstone, you're acknowledging that Scarborough Street or road is only 18 metres wide, and you talk about the next stage, it will go to 24 metres, but the existing Scarborough Street is still only ever going to be 18 metres.
No, all of Scarborough Street will be only 18 metres.
Yep.
What I'm saying is between the two roundabouts on the Road 1, it will be enlarged to 24 metres. So the link road will go up to a roundabout there at the neighbourhood centre at the intersection of Road 1 and Scarborough Street. And then if you turn left onto Road 1, it'll be 24 metres, go down to a roundabout there at the intersection of Miriam and Road 1, which is 26 metres again. So,
but the proposal for 2 roundabouts, that's in the next stage. It's not with us tonight. So in the meantime, where will the traffic be directed to or encouraged to go? In this report, it says they're going to be encouraged to go down Scarborough Street. Will they still be allowed to go down Miriam Drive?
Yes, they can only go down Miriam Drive. They won't be able to go down Scarborough Street because of that blocking lot, that lot 1 in DP 548053.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm a little bit easier with it. That I'll accept your explanation, and I'll vote for the motion tonight. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Bigstone.
Just a follow-up question when we're talking about green space, when one of these subdivisions come to us, and maybe the director might make a comment on it. I do notice that we've got around about 91 parks and heaps of areas in Orange as green space and those type of things, and they cost us money to maintain and all those type of things there, like Plowman's Wetlands, Botanical Gardens, and all these other parks. And I just wonder, when a report comes in front of us as regards to this, can we have sort of some comment as regards to the actual cost of making these green spaces or maintaining these green spaces? Because I think all we're doing is making a reason to put more cost on the ratepayers sometimes when there's probably no need. But I just when a further development comes in front of us of significance, that we have some comment as regards to what impact on the costs of a council would be. Because I think already now our Parks and Gardens bill is something like $5 million a year, and that could be a little bit off. But just seek a comment from the director, if I could.
Yeah, we could certainly,
yep. Mr. Hodges,
certainly take that on notice and see what we can do with the future reports. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. With that section of road that we don't own, that CSU owns, are we having any discussions with them to be perhaps being able to make some arrangement for us to get that? Because I do know that we've had other discussions about land development out there. That's one, because it seems future development of that area, it could be worthwhile getting that section of land. My second statement, I suppose, is, look, it's great to see the preservation of those trees, but I think we've got to be a bit careful when we make very wide, broad statements that they could be somewhere between 100 and 300 years old. I'll certainly go out and tell you how old they are, because that brings in a thing. I think the other thing, when we're going to develop that area, these trees are standing as individual trees, and that will be more prone to getting wind damage and storm damage. And as limbs and that hollow out, as you would know, have a look up the back of my place, which is mainly yellow box, white box, and red river gum. Have a look at the amount of very, very large limbs that come out of all those trees on 2 occasions. One was when we had the heavy snowfall, and about 3 weeks later when we had that really heavy driving wind. I've got about a week's work just cleaning up big limbs that come out. And the other one that we have to remember here is that those trees will eventually die. We need to have them regenerating. Now, what I've seen in some of the areas where we do preserve some of these trees, we make it just a lawn area where we mow, and nothing regenerates from that tree. We need to have it as a regeneration area that new young trees will come up, because all you're doing is preserving a tree, mowing all around it, which won't see any suckers or anything come up. And then when the tree dies, you've got no tree, no remnant vegetation. So
Mr. Hodges, you want to make a comment?
Fall down on somebody.
It's a bit more complex than just saying, oh, well, it's a good idea to preserve it now.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Romano.
We, as a council, the cost is what concerns me. The owners of that land, or the developers, by giving that land back to council, the council has to buy that land. Is that right? They're not just going to give it to the council just for the sake of having a parkland. Is that correct?
Mr. Hodges, or the CEO, who wants to answer that one?
You go, Mr. Hodges.
Yeah, I'll mention it. When there's land that is benefited or benefits other subdivisions, then we purchase it. Where there's a contribution plan in place, that gives us the money to do that. In terms of these blocks here, there's not a contribution plan that would provide that, so that would need to be provided, given to council, these blocks here. We're in discussions with the developers on that proposal, and that's where, as has been pointed out, there's been a few, a little bit of give, a little bit of take on this one here, like the 7 extra blocks down in the open space just to the east of this site is an example of where there's different blocks. Up to the north there near the round commercial core centre, there was a lot of open space there given back for roads, which gave better linkage back through to the university blocks. So a bit more. So it's not just a matter of they haven't necessarily had a loss of blocks. It's more they just changed the style of their presentation.
But the land that the council retains has to be paid for. They're not going to donate the land, the developer, and then we're stuck with, we have to maintain it.
Yeah, in this regard, the development contribution plan doesn't cover it, so it wouldn't be paid for. That's when council can have a condition requiring it to go to council. That's what it does.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Hodges. Okay, I think with Councillor Munro, just a quick one, please.
Yes, thank you. Look, the contributions council get, the 100-odd house blocks, the future rates, I think it's very important that we have this bit of green space and that sort of thing. And if we've got to take up the cost, well, that's borne by future rates and income coming back into the town as our town grows. Of course, we're going to have more green space and more of this sort of thing, but we do it on a pro rata, on a cost basis, don't we, over the amount of population we have. So I don't think the cost is important. I think the conservation of the trees are important, and I agree with the Mayor Kidd in regards to planting more like type trees around it, just so that it's like a bit of bushland. We don't really need to mow it. And I agree with him wholeheartedly there. So it could be just blocked off as a nature conservation area. Anyway, that's just a...
Thanks, Councillor Munro. I think I'd like to put the motion now, if I could. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Again, I can't see all the hands. It's unanimous.
You got them all, yeah.
Right, thank you. The motion is carried. Move on to 2.6, development application, lots 23, 24 Edward Street, or the old rail yards. Moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by
Councillor Whitten.
Councillor Duffy. Councillor Whitten. Any discussion?
May I make a comment here of Mr. Thiesdale?
Councillor Kidd, yes.
Will this finally mean that I will get my stock shelter portion out at the Dairy Creek sheds on Bathurst Road as a monument for the history of the Orange Sailor?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. That's got nothing to do with the development.
Yes, it has.
I'll just take that as a comment.
It came in especially for this, Mr. Thiesdale?
Yes, that's correct. You will finally get that. As a condition of consent, the planners have asked for three bays, I think, to be retained there at the retention basin, shown on the I guess it's on the northwestern corner of the development. 4 bays will go out to the
Dairy Creek.
Dairy Creek Road, where the steel cows are.
Yep.
used as a shelter there. We've already got a plan and some engineering drawings for that, and the rest will be put up for public tender. I believe there are a few people interested in actually purchasing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Theakstone. Mr. Councillor Munro.
I'd just like to comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it is a very important thing to preserve that. After somebody that's been at those yards since 1990 and knowing many of the older agents and whatever that used to run that place, it certainly holds a lot of history and significance for Orange, and I think it's important that we preserve something of it. So thank you to staff for doing that.
Yep, certainly a very important part of Orange's history. You know, right back to when the loading ramps, when the stock were then put on the rail and transported to Homebush, and all the stock in New South Wales virtually was slaughtered at Homebush. We've moved on, and it's a very important part of history, but also now a very valuable asset belonging to Orange City Council. Any other comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. I declare the motion passed. Go to 2.7, development application.
Move
it.
Councillor
643 Mitchell Highway. Moved. Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Duffy. Any comment? Councillor Nugent.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm speaking against the recommendation for the same reasons that I spoke against it at our last meeting, or against or for the development application modification. At that last meeting, my understanding is that we should be voting on the merits of any application before us. And at that last meeting, there was discussion about, lodging a protest vote. There was words used like that in relation to this development. There was one councillor, I think Councillor Duffy, said that there's no sort of financial benefit from this, would come from this development. And what we were talking about is two minor modifications of a development application that has been approved by the Western Region Planning Panel. And while we might not, like the fact that it was approved by them, it has been approved by them. And I'm not a complete fan of the New South Wales government's planning processes in their entirety, but they are what we have, and they are what we have to live with. So we were talking about two minor modifications which would take place probably 25 years at least down the track. We're not talking about anything to do with the here and now. So to me, it seemed, crazy not to be supporting such minor modifications to a development application. It also seems to me that this development would bring financial benefits to the city. It'd bring investment of money. It'd bring, I think, a $2.5 million grant funding that has been allocated to the project. It would create some jobs, up to 50 jobs in the construction and 2 in the ongoing operation. There'd be a multiplier effect in terms of creating jobs within the city. That's not even setting aside or looking at the renewable energy that it would produce for the city to be consumed by the city, the emissions reductions that it would achieve, and the contribution that it would make to fighting climate change, which, in my view, is one of the most important, if not the most important issue that we have to deal with moving forward as a city, as a state, as a country. So I just can't support the recommendation for refusal. It doesn't make any sense to me, and when I read the recommendation and the reasons for the refusal, I just find that they're pretty thin. it seemed like at that last council meeting we were scratching around trying to come up with reasons for refusal.
Chairman.
So,
point of order, Mr. Chairman. I didn't scratch around.
Mr. Chairman.
So
Finish
point
up,
of order,
Councillor
Mr.
Nugent. Yep.
Sorry.
Just finish up. Forget about the interjections.
Okay. So I think I've said what I need to say.
Okay.
It seems to me inappropriate, and we're out of touch by making a decision to refuse these minor modifications to an existing development application that has been approved.
Thanks, Councillor Nugent. Councillor Munro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I moved the motion for discussion, but as you know, I voted against it last time. I still feel that way. I think it's in the wrong place, and we didn't particularly not want a solar farm in our district. But as councillors, we are the ones that determine where things go and where things should go. And I think our refusal of this would warrant a letter to the minister to have a look at it and ask sincerely to the minister to adjudicate on this and try and have it moved to some other area that's out of sight and not on the entrance or the exit to Orange. In my opinion and others' opinion, this is in the wrong place, and that's the reason most people have gone for a refusal and of this particular thing. But I think the wide majority of people agree with councillors, all councillors or most councillors, in regards to this is in the wrong place, but we want a solar farm somewhere around Orange, which would be out of sight and in a area that would be more better aesthetically to Orange. So
Thanks,
for me,
Councillor Munro. Any other?
Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Moto.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I was the councillor that made the comment on a protest vote. It's my understanding that the majority of councillors during this application originally voted for a submission to come from this council to the regional planning organisation as a refusal. And we voted that we did not want this DA to go ahead based on good farming land, based on a lot of submissions from neighbours around that area. And I do make my decisions based on good planning around DAs, not based on Greens policy. So that's the reason why I have decided to support this refusal for the amendments, because this council voted against this entire DA application going ahead in the first place. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Chairman.
Councillor Whitten. Councillor Mileto.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I will be supporting the recommendation of refusal. I don't accept that they are two minor alterations to the original DA. I think these are significant, potentially significant alterations because of the impact it's going to have on Orange moving forward in the future. And I say that for a number of reasons. I just have a few questions of concern relating to this matter. And those reasons for refusal in the attached notice of termination should not be the only things that are prepared on the basis of views expressed by councillors in the council meeting which was held on this 17th of August 2021, but also but not limited to the following few things which I would like to bring to people's attention based on the information which I've been provided. I guess what I start off with is under what criteria did the application qualify for state regional significant development considering in the first instance, for consideration in the first instance? I propose the council be provided with a copy of the proposal put forward to the Western Region Planning Panel. I'd like to have a look at that. And I think that all councillors should be provided with a copy of that. There's been a lot of discussion amongst councillors and the public as to, how we can approve one thing and it goes somewhere else. So I'm just interested to have a look at to see what the Western Regional Planning Panel were provided in relation to this. I've never been provided a copy of that document. Also, because of
Oh, no, I thought you'd finished. Go on.
No, I haven't finished yet. Also, because of the protracted delay in the requirement for the assessment of the consequences of the need for changes to the ingress from the highway, and councillors will become this has become more irrelevant due to the recent fatality that occurred near that location. This may also add cost to the original DA application, thus putting it over the $10 million figure, which was needed to get it to the Western Region Planning Panel. So I think that's of concern too, because obviously there's going to be some, potentially there may be some realignment of the road there, which is going to add to the cost of the development. It's also my understanding that the approval given to the solar farm by the Western Region Planning Panel for state significant development was under the 10 million, and this may also need to be reassessed based on what I've already spoken about. In light of the application by the proposed development to alter the original application, I believe that it's council's duty to reassess whether the original approval was consented to by the correct authority in the first instance. If the development is now found to exceed $10 million, like I'm suggesting it may, it would be a question of whether or not the Western Region Planning Panel should have had jurisdiction to grant approval in the first place. As a result, then the development will be subject to rules pertaining to developments over $10 million and consequently would then offer the Orange City Council more opportunity to have a greater insight of the development to ensure that it is compliant with all the community interests, which include impacts upon future developments or adjacent to land uses. It should also be noted that council are responsible for solar development applications and are encouraged to consider site selection and impact matters when determining applications. And the type of things which we would have liked to have had the opportunity to look at would be those visual impact of landscape, which is also highlighted by the application to vary the original DA. It would appear for the first 25 years of the operation of the solar farm would be barely cost effective in any event. Hence the reason why they've asked to alter the DA. In light of this situation, it would be even more important for council to seek guarantees from the developer that this site can be properly remediated at the end of its viability without any cost to council. Other issues to consider would also be a substation which may be required and need prior development approval, which may also increase the cost of the overall development. An access road may also be needed prior to any development approval, which may also increase the cost of the overall development. So they're things which I believe should be included in a letter to the Western Region Planning Panel. So it's not a matter of just councillors having an opinion, as some of the other councillors have clearly articulated. They've looked at this very seriously, and so have I. And those concerns should be addressed. They should be noted and put into the letter. And I don't see these as being minor changes, because they're going to have a substantial impact on Orange moving forward to the future, especially the way the town is progressing out in that direction. Thank you very much.
Councillor Turner.
Mr. Waddell, would you want to make a comment on that?
More Mr. Hodges. I think it's interesting, Mr. Hodges, whether we could go back over that ground is something I think we need to take on notice, Mr. Hodges.
Okay, Councillor Turner, if I may.
Hang on, Mr. Hodges is making a comment. Sorry.
I can certainly take it on notice. What's before council tonight is the refusal of the modification, which was the maintenance of the trees in perpetuity, the word perpetuity, and also the extension of the time taken to remove the solar panels into the future from 3 months to 6 months. That's all.
Yep. Councillor Kidd.
Look, if I may, at the last meeting, councillors, not all councillors, majority of councillors agreed that I could draft a letter, get a letter to be sent to the minister.
Yep.
And to the planning panel, which I'm in the process of doing. I've spent a lot of time on it, and I've had discussions with Mr. Tamar Hodges about this. That will be definitely going. I want to make a couple of points quite clear here. It wasn't a close vote to refuse it way back. It was 10-1.
Yeah.
So that really showed what the elected people thought representing the community on this one. The planning panel process and meeting was a sham. And I don't mind who's listening, and I will say that. And most of the people involved will say it was a sham. Bad connection, you couldn't get in. I was led to believe I couldn't speak. A whole range of things actually happened to people that wanted to speak at that planning panel. I am quite sure if it was any individual here, and had an objection, you would be quite irate about it. Now, I just want to go a couple of things that Mr. Miletto said. You're quite right, Mr. Miletto. People do play with the figures to make sure that it gets to a planning panel and not to a council, etc. and so forth. I think this one's got hairs on it, and I've said that before, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Some of the assumptions that have been used, and Councillor Nugent also used there, that this will provide cheaper electricity for the people on. What a lot of poppycock. You have no
point of order, Mr.
No point of order.
You made the comment. I'm just saying you made the comment, and that's not true. Or give us proof.
How do you know?
No, hold it. How do you know?
Councillor Kidd has the floor.
I'll tell you one of the main reasons I know that I do have solar, and I've had solar for 14 odd years, and I've just got another solar system. I walk the talk, I don't talk the talk, okay, in renewable energy and solar energy. This council has a very, very good policy on renewable energy that we're working for. Have a look at the amount of buildings just finished again on top of the Civic Centre, down at the pool, out at the airport, down at the works depot. But I'm sick and tired of listening to this like that we don't know anything about renewable energy and we're not in this space. We're in it very, very much so, but being pushed sometimes by idealists making comments about this is really good for everyone, it'll get them cheaper electricity. Come on, let's be a bit fair dinkum. This council was not against a solar installation. It was the location of it.
Absolutely.
It was the location of it. And Councillor Meadows quite right, looking at the future development of Orange. Go out there and have a look at the properties around this, including the property that we're talking about. I know two of the people out there have been planting trees for at least 45 years that I know of, and have planted more trees than probably on their property than anyone else on this council and most people that I actually know. Absolutely no consideration of that. Don't think these are minor things. These things could be just put to make it a better package to sell it on. The proposed development is not from a company in Orange. They've set up a thing to try and raise money into it, but basically they're an external body that's based Canberra and Melbourne who, this is a business. This is a business proposal. Good on them. This is not a proposal from a majority of people from Orange. Now, I've taken all sorts of abuse on this one and I'm into renewable energy, but in this case here, I thought, no, this is absolutely ludicrous because I've looked at solar installations down at Wagga and a number of other areas, and they considered an ideal location which to put them in, which didn't interfere with the future expansion of the town or the city, if you like. It took in a whole range of issues which we discussed at length, and in this case, as I said, it was 10-1. It was not 6-5. It was 10-1. So I will be, on behalf of the bigger majority of the councils, taking this as far as I possibly can with your imprimatur. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. We're looking forward to that letter being forwarded on. I'll now put the motion, if we can. All those in favour of the motion, which is of refusal. Is there any votes against?
Yeah, there's one.
Yes, there is.
Nugent, anyone else? Because I can't see everyone. Is there anyone else, Mr. Mayor? Only Mr. Councillor Nugent?
Yep.
So the vote's 9-1.
Vote is carried 9-1. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Just a matter arising, Mr. Chairman. A matter arising, just asked the Mayor when Councillor Miletto spoke about the trimmings of how to keep something down so it doesn't come near council. I'm just wondering if councillors can get a copy of the letter that goes off that where we have an extremely strong letter to the minister that we're not happy about this situation.
Yeah.
Is that possible, Mr. Hodges?
I understood that's what council wanted.
Yeah, and that's what I'll be doing.
Yep. Okay. Happy, Councillor Duffy?
Yes, I'm always happy.
Okay, the motion's been moved. We'll move on to 2.8, development application, 78 Forbes Road. Move Councillor Munro, seconded by
Councillor Miletto.
Councillor Miletto, as I can't see Councillor Miletto. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion.
Sorry, mate. Yep.
Councillor Munro.
Yeah, look, I think this has come up before, and we are very strong against the other development. This is a sound development in a great opportunity, and I sort of applaud the people that are putting this together, and will also sell very well.
Okay,
thanks,
Councillor Munro. Any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Councillor Romano, which way are you going? Unanimous. The vote is carried. That completes the Planning and Development Committee meeting, and I'll pass the meeting over to Councillor Whitten for the infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. And I'll open the Infrastructure Committee meeting at 8:28. And there's no declarations of interest. I'll move on to item 2.1, minutes of the meeting of the City of Orange Traffic Committee held 10th of August 2021.
Move that, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any discussion on the minutes?
Just a question arising from the minutes, if possible, please.
Councillor Miletto.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Councillors would recall at our last meeting, the issue was raised with regards to traffic flow by heavy vehicles upon Edward Street. I'm just wondering if Councillor Turner was able to provide any feedback with regards to any possible solutions to addressing that issue, particularly when we look at the subdivision which is going to go ahead on the southern end of Edward Street and the potential impact which it may have on residents. Is there any appetite or discussion with the traffic committee as ways of encouraging vehicles to come along the southern feeder road and stop them from travelling down Edward Street in a northerly direction towards Bathurst Road, I guess?
We've had a number of discussions. I might ask Councillor Mr. Theakstone to give us the latest update of the discussions we've had with who I understand Manildra Mills had the majority of the trucks in question, and I'll ask Mr. Theakstone to see what the results of those discussions were.
Yes, that's correct. Manildra Mill were trucking about 20 B-double loads of flour into a development there at the end of Stevens Place. They were going in via Edward Street up the SFR and then back down around. They've given an undertaking not to do that via Edward Street now. They'll go via the southern feeder road now it being opened, and we have removed the B-double Gazettal from Edward Street. It was put on there while we were building Southern Feeder Road Stage 3 to give access into Leewood from the highway. That's been removed now. There is provisions under the Road Transport Act to impose load limits on streets. I would be cautious in doing that because you could restrict a bus movement or a garbage truck along the street. So that would need some consideration before doing that. On top of all of that, we're putting some traffic classifiers out there. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we'd have some complexities with the hardware, but we should be getting those traffic classifiers out there next week, and that will give us a good indication of actually how many trucks are going up and down Edward Street, and if it is actually a real issue, we can compare it against, let's say, previous data.
Mr. Theakstone, I'll just make a comment. I checked late last week, and there were 2 B-doubles still parked in Edward Street on the new section where the sale yards used to be. obviously they had come up Edward Street against our recommendation and the assurance we had from Manilda Mills that they wouldn't do it. So are council officers inspecting the road or the police inspecting the road in the meantime?
It becomes a police matter now. We don't have the delegation to fine under the National Heavy Vehicle Law, but it's a police matter. So I'll talk to the cops first thing in the morning.
Beekstone, are they actually breaking any laws?
Yeah, they're not supposed to take VWs up.
V-doubles can't go up there.
That's right.
Okay.
Councillor Duffy.
Councillor,
thanks, Mr. Chairman.
I'm the chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Tanner.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
You can take both, mate.
He's gone,
I think
pal,
Councillor
mate.
Hamling had his hand up first.
Yeah, I did,
Duffy.
Mr. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
I'll do Councillor Hamling first.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Good choice. I suppose after what we've just heard, we hope that the company doesn't do it and don't take B doubles up the road. So I suppose it's a wait and see how we go with what happens into the future, and if we can, if it's a police matter, I'm sure they would they'll know about it and they'll police it appropriately. So I think it's just a wait and see how we go, and so I'm happy with that outcome at the moment.
Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you. I'm pretty sure, I think, as Mr. Theakstone knows, and probably the Mayor and a few others know, the owners of the mill, I think if there's just a quiet chat to them, I think the problem would be solved. And I think it's a bit of a common sense. I know the owners myself, and I've always got along exceptionally well with them when I was on Combined Council. And they worked well with council, and I can't see any reason why they wouldn't do that. So I think a phone call would probably be from the Mayor.
Personal touch, community business.
Councillor
Munro.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Look, I understand that a 10-tonne limit can be imposed, and as far as the garbage trucks or any other truck delivering in that to a premises on that road, as far as trusses for a new house or anything like that is allowed. A 10-tonne limit has been indicated to me that it existed on that road. I'd like to ask the General Manager or CEO for his advice on that, because that's what I've been told. And as far as the policing of it, well, if a truck has gone up there that hasn't delivered to a premises on that road, they're liable to be fined, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. I think we understand what's going on in Edward Street. Is there any further questions?
So, General Manager, just ask the CEO, please.
Sorry, Councillor Whitten, can I just have a question of clarification, please, Councillor Whitten?
Certainly, Councillor Milletta.
Thank you. Can I just clarify that those permits which Mr. Theakstone spoke about, are you saying that the ones which are in effect until the end of October are now redundant and don't apply? If so, when did that occur?
I couldn't, through you, Mr. Chair, I couldn't give you the exact date, but when this issue flared up there at the last meeting, we did tell the National NHVR, the National Vehicle Heavy Vehicle Regulator, to remove that B double gazettal. So that should have been done by now, and now Edward Street would not be gazetted as a B double route.
No. How are we able to confirm that was done?
There's a number of ways. There's a on the NHVR website. There's a what's called a journey planner, and you can zoom into Orange, and you can actually see the B double maps. So I'll do that as we speak. I'm pretty sure it has been removed. Truck drivers themselves have what's called an intelligent transport device, and it's like a GPS in a car, and it tells them which roads they can drive up and down, so they actually know when they're not driving. So a B double driver knows when he's not driving on the right road.
Thank you. That clarifies
Thank
my
you,
question.
Councillor Letter. Thank you, Mr. Thigstone.
Mr. Chair, can I
Alrighty.
just suggest through you that perhaps to the CEO, I think that'd be a good media story to put out that just explains why it happened. Well, you know, but now with the Southern Distributor being used, etc., and so forth, that is no longer available to be done. Just because there's been a lot of been comment about it out there in the general public. I don't think it'd make a good story.
You got that, Mr. CEO?
I do. Thank you.
Alrighty, no further questions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Right.
Motion's carried. Those unanimously. Item 2.2 of the minutes is of the extraordinary meeting of the City of the Orange Traffic Committee held 20 of August.
I'll move. Move.
Been moved by Councillor Romano, seconded by Councillor Turner. Any discussion on these minutes? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Munro, are you voting?
Sorry.
Against? Motion's carried. Item 3.1, current works.
I'll move those if you wish, Chair.
It's been moved by Councillor Kidd.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Romano. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a quick thing out to the congratulations to the council staff on the way they've handled the road repairs. As we're all aware, we've had unprecedented, or not unprecedented, but significant amounts of rain in recent times, and the roads really do get a beating. And I was just very impressed. A few times I've seen the crews out in weather, which was absolutely appalling, I suppose you'd describe it. And they were out there repairing the roads. And when you drive around town now, I mean, there's not too many areas that haven't been addressed by council staff. So I think we take it for granted sometimes. I mean, because, you know, and the fact is that I think it's only natural. People tend to think, oh, look, the roads in their particular city or their particular village or whatever are the only ones that get potholes. I think the state, right across the state, they would have suffered the same type of damage. But our staff seem to do an exemplary job in repairing those roads. And it wasn't just a matter of putting hot mix in holes. I've seen a lot of sheet repairs done around town by the crews. So, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important that the council acknowledge the work that those council employees did during that period of time. And they are ongoing doing it. And we can reassure people that they will be there continuing to repair those roads that were significantly damaged in the winter just gone past.
Yeah, I'll have to agree, Councillor Taylor. I've got a lot of feedback from the community, especially around the new Southern Distributor. I know that's probably not the terminology.
Yeah.
The quality of the workmanship on that road is impeccable, and if that's the quality of roads that we're going to be building in Orange into the future, that's the sort of roads we want. So yeah, a lot of people in that area are saying how the hell well those roads are, and also around about the depot crews that are doing a lot of work, Mr. CEO and Manager Engineering Services. During lockdown, the teams are still getting out there and they're getting the job done. So well done to you all.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just one quick thing. I mean, we did cop some flack some years ago about roads like the Northern Distributor Road, and we did take it on board. And I think we need to reassure the community that we did take that on board, and we are seeing the results of that higher level of quality as far as road building is concerned. And I want to congratulate Council. I know you're a supporter of it, and I have been for many years. The increased use of hot mix across the roads in Orange.
The only way to build roads.
Yeah, and we really are doing great jobs. You only got to look at Lone Pine Avenue is another one there.
Yeah, I still haven't got my bitumen machine, but the CEO will fix that one day. Councillor Duffy was first, and Councillor Hamling.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good choice. I'm happy to support the comments from Councillor Taylor, but as I said, I drive around town all a bit, and I see areas up around Holman Way. I see even out around Clifton Grove, down over the hill in the Rambler, and those places there. So I'll sit this one out for the next fortnight or so and just see how we go, because I know some of those roads are in terrible repair at the moment.
I just hope you're sending in an email to the team, Councillor Duffy, letting them know, because you like you said, Councillor Duffy, you spend your
same pay. I will.
You spend your working life driving around the city, so you should send in an email, let them know where the holes are, because they possibly can't see them all. Councillor Duffy, Councillor Hamlin, sorry.
Oh,
Can I have an apology,
how
please?
dare you call me Councillor Duffy and Councillor Whitten? Just a couple of points while we're on the roads. I will congratulate the staff. There's been a few broken up roads that I've reported, and they don't take long at all to get out there and fix them up. You know, you get people ringing you about certain roads, certain places, and council staff are straight out there to fix them. You never get a phone call back from the people thanking you for doing it, but from me, thank you. I just wanted to, while we're talking about roads, Clergate Road, could I just, I know, how are we going with the funding for that? I know it's there. Is it on the map? Because I've had a lot of people asking about Clergate.
Yeah, no, I think Mr. Greenham's answered this, but we'll steer. Who would like to take that, Mr. CEO or Mr. Theakston?
Mr. Theakston, please, Mr. Theakston.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Look, we've got a bit of money. We've got 650,000 through heavy vehicle safety and productivity. That's the feds. We've asked for that again. Yet to receive a response on that. We will be getting 1.3 million through a Building Better Regions. That's the feds again, probably in about January. We're quite progressed with the design to at least about 100% design. Got a few little stormwater issues that we're working through, so we'll be ready to go after Christmas. I would expect, subject to funding, we will be renewing the Clergate Road up to Industry Drive, up to, let's say, the new Storco building, probably at least this financial year. So it could be between March and June this year, next year.
Fantastic. That's
good news.
Thank you very much for that. And
sorry, Councillor Hamlin.
As we've mentioned, I hope that gets out into media so we can tell the people that we are getting on and doing that road. Can I just, sorry, Mr. Mayor, just number two, I just want to congratulate council on the footpaths, especially the ones coming up the Forbes Road there, which is meeting Wirraburra Walk. I've had a few people ask me about some lighting along Wirraburra Walk, because there is a lot of people that use that that track down from Coronation Drive to Forbes Road. I was wondering, is any chance we could get some lighting in there? Maybe the lighting that we have in Matthews Park, not big light poles that are going to put lights in people's backyards, just some sort of solar lighting that we could put along there. Because as I said, especially with the COVID, there's been a lot of people out exercising, and then the comments about the footpaths have been fantastic. But I just wonder if we could get some sort of lighting down Wirraburra Walk there.
I think that's
we'll put it on the list, Mr. Chair. We'll put that on the list.
Can I just say that's something the next council should be looking at, actually? It won't be, because that'll be quite an expensive thing.
There might be some sort of funding out there, Mr. Mayor, that we might be able to chase or something.
Yeah.
Well, if you get re-elected, Councillor Hamlin, you can raise it in the next council.
Matter arising.
Councillor Kidd, sorry, Councillor.
Look, just a couple of things to make. Isn't it fantastic? Two things just on water. Have a look at our average potable water consumption. Even though we're getting water running out of the dams and that, it's just incredibly low. So it's been a great job done by the community. Secondly, congratulations that we're going ahead with that second wetlands project, and there'll be Blackmans Creek wetlands. That'll be a great asset in the future, just like the Ploughmans Creek wetlands have been good supplementary sources of water in certain times. So congratulations on with that moving forward. And finally, the back, and look, those other projects, congratulate the contractors and our staff on the future cities upgrade. It's been horrible weather for the last 6 or 7 weeks, but it's been out there in all the elements, and the work is being actually done. And as far as I know, it's still fairly well close to being on time. So that, and then the last one I'd like to see over the back here, when we talk about energy use, have a look at the energy use of council and with our buildings. where we do our consumption, CO2 emissions and what it's costing us. And please take note of how that is changing and decreasing with things that we've done, like the LED lighting things, the Southern Lights project in the main street, the solar installations that we're actually putting in. It'd be interesting to know how many councils do such a report as that. And I think we're possibly leading the way with surrounding larger cities around here in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Miletto, is yours a matter arising?
Yes, it is.
Would you? So I'll put the motion first, so you can raise your matter arising. So, is there any before I put the motion, Councillor Duffy?
No, I was raising my hand to vote.
Oh, you're voting, are you? All right. All right. I'd like to thank you all for some great discussion, some good ideas, Councillor Hammond. And Mr. Mayor, I thought we were going to get away without talking about water. It's a good, we've got so much rain, which is beautiful. And I've got dams in the paddocks that I haven't even built. So it's good to see. I'd rather, you can make money out of mud, you can't make it out of dust, as they say. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against, carried. Councillor Miletto, you have a matter arising?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Whitten. The first matter arising actually relates to water and in particular the Ploughman's Lane wetlands. I can report to Council as advised that I was approached by a member of the public today who came across a snake, a black snake on the path down there. So it may be a good opportunity to remind the council, remind the public to be cautious this time of year, because the feisty 1 metre black snake come out of the brushes down there and scared a person walking a dog. So I think people need to be cautious this time of year, and we may need to remind people that walking down there in that beautiful area that snakes are becoming a little bit active with the weather warming up. So that was my first matter arising, and that was only today that was brought to my attention. The second one is an issue which I'd like to raise in the coming weeks, and in regards to being approached by numerous people in the sporting field, and it relates to possibly looking at an artificial synthetic soccer field at Jack Brabham Park. So it's something which I would be looking at a comprehensive cost analysis to find out whether that was possible. But I have spoken to Councillor Hamling about that, and I do declare an interest or a conflict of interest, which I would say would being the president of the Orange District Football Association. So I do declare an interest there, but my interest is only trying to provide sport for other people in this town on a voluntary basis. So that is another issue which I'll be raising in the near future, councillors.
Okay,
Chair,
wouldn't that be more appropriate in sport and rec?
Yeah, I was going to refer it to the chair of Sport and Rec for the next meeting.
Yeah, I don't have anything this meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so we'll
take
refer
that on board.
Yeah,
that's why I raised it, because there was nothing there.
All right, no further matters arising. That concludes the Infrastructure Policy Committee at 8:50, and I'll invite Councillor Duffy as the chair of the Finance Committee to take the floor.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Whitten, and I declare the Finance Committee meeting open at 8:51, and being no declarations of interest or significant other issues of community interest, I will move on to 2.1, which is a low interest loan for indoor. Moved by Councillor Newton, seconded by Councillor Hamling. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, raise your arm. Unanimous. Move on to 2.2, fees and charges.
Councillor Miletto.
Move, Councillor Miletto, seconded.
Oh, I just
Councillor Newton.
I just have a suggestion, Councillor Duffy, that all these items be heard separately in seriatim.
No, I think that's item 2.3 you wanted to do.
Yeah, this is 2.2.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, 2.3, this is 2.2.
Happy to move the recommendation for 2.2, Councillor Newton.
Moved. That has been moved by Councillor Nugent, seconded by
Okay, I'll second it, Councillor Duffy.
Councillor Whitten. Okay, I've just got a couple of comments that I'd like the director to take on board. And when you consider what's actually happening with this here, these fees of $20 per player on a club raises the fees for a club around about $2,000 for a junior club, and we've got quite a number of clubs. And we also look at the and my biggest concern all the way along is I didn't want to see it priced out where by people who couldn't really be afford to be paying that. Clubs can't pay that. Be something like the Conservatorium and the other areas which appear to be a bit of an elitist type thing, and I don't want to go down that pathway. But I'm also looking at the issue of when is it available for our juniors to use and seniors to use and those type of things, because we could have the same issues arising here of what we had with the swimming pool quite a number of years ago. And I do know that we're one of our Tettons, which are Cricket New South Wales, they've virtually got a peppercorn rent there. And I do recall that the major money that come into this cricket centre was given by council itself. And I'm just wondering when this comes back, because I think it's probably 100% overcharged. It should be probably around about $10 a head. But I'm just wondering also, is this fee and charges going back for a previous year as well? Because I don't think in the current climate we're not allowed to use the thing. The cricketers aren't allowed to use it. So I just have a lot of questions. I'm quite happy for it to go on parade sort of thing. But I think we need good discussions when it comes back again as to what the fees and charges should actually be.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a quick comment? I think before COVID hit, it was probably the most popular place in town. There was, and the clubs are very good at booking it, and they've given codes. They're allowed to go in and out. So I don't think it's big enough personally. I think we should have gone with the extra couple of lanes that we'll probably have to look at that in the future, expanding it, because I think it has become very popular. And during winter, I've been there a couple of times, and all clubs are using it together and they're using it cohesively. So I can't see a problem that they can use that any time with that fee. I understand with the extra $20, they can go in any time as long as there's room, and there's always been room.
Yeah, can I ask a question to the director and bring it back next meeting when it comes back again, as regards to the availability of it? If higher bodies within the cricket organisation want it, do they have preference? The answer to that question is yes.
So it has to be, because it's a centre of cricket excellence.
Just my concerns with regards to it, and you raised the point, Mr. Councillor Hamling, is that you don't think it's big enough. So we could have the actual fight that we had at the swimming pool, with Sims fighting with Hawks, with Centrals fighting with Orange City and all those things about usage.
I did not say that was happening at the moment. I said they're using it cohesively. We're not talking about the pool. We're talking about cricketers, and they've been using it fantastically at the moment.
We will have the issue addressed when it comes back again.
Chair, can I speak, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Can I just say that also talking to lots of the cricket fraternity, they reckon this is the best thing since Cangrog, actually, having this cricket centre of excellence. And I've had that from senior players or veterans, if you like it, right through to juniors. The last sort of carnival here, which was a seniors carnival, they couldn't believe and were just over the moon that we had it here, just how lucky we were. Since then, I've had a visit from a Robert Thomas, who I know that you would know, and a Mr. Stephen Bernard, who was back in Orange, who just thinks that this is fantastic, renowned cricketers from our district. I think we did get some funding out of this. I know there may be times, same as Wade Park or anything, there may be some representative fixture on or whatever where people can't get access. That happens at the pool, that happens at Wade Park for footy, that happens out at Waratahs. So I think that's not unusual, but the most important thing is that everyone's working and cooperating together. I think it's a fantastic asset for the City of Orange. And you lost round one. I think you're going to lose round two.
Okay, I'll have the final say on this one here. I think a report can come back just to address those issues. No one's arguing the point that it's an extremely good asset to both rugby league and other sports as well as cricket. Okay, I'm going to put the resolution. All those in favour, raise your hand.
Sorry, before you go on. So that's with this and a report.
When the report comes back, I'll tend to make a comment about the issues that were raised. Okay.
Got to put a submission in, Councillor Hammond.
Yes, Mr. Bedell.
Councillor Duffy, before you move on to the next item, can I ask that Council considers the next item recommendation while I read something out, please?
Yep.
The next item, 2.3, the small donations program, under the recommendation, we've got an error in point 4. It says that a donation of $1,000 be made for the Banjo Patterson Park. That should read $2,500, please.
My word.
Yep. And also, staff, I would like to remove item 6 from the recommendation. As you know, Councillor Duffy, questions have been asked about this item yesterday, and staff are continuing to do some investigation around those questions. I would like that number 6 removed, and we've spoken to the applicant, and that's fine. If Council would indulge us, please.
Okay, so just to clarify things here so the Mayor can hear what I'm saying, is that we're taking out item number 6 in that 2.3, and we're giving $250 to the Banjo Patterson Park.
2,000.
$2,500.
I think his genius up.
Can I
ask a question? Can I ask a question?
You can ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
I think, is there any reason why we can't make a decision on item 6?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was a very good question asked, and it goes to whether that organisation can validly be subject to our donations program. We need another piece of paperwork, and once we get that paperwork, we will be coming back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
It was a valid question, and we're pursuing it.
Okay, councillors, someone like to move the recommendation minus the plus the adjustments and minus item 6. It's been moved by Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Munro. All those in favour, raise your hand. Unanimous. That brings a close to the Finance Policy Committee, and we now move on at 9 o'clock, and now we move on to the Service Policy. And I call on Councillor Munro, I assume.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee meeting, 7th September 21, time of 9:01, whatever it is. I'd ask, does any councillor have any pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Item 2.1, minutes of the NAIDOC.
Move the recommendation.
Second the recommendation, Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Is there any discussion on the item? Being none, I'll put the motion. Thank you. Show of hands, everybody. Should be unanimous, I think. I can't see anyone. Anyway, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you, councillors. That's it for the Services Policy Committee meeting. I'll hand it back to Councillor Kidd at 9:01. So it took about 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Munro. Councillors, we move to items 4, and that's notices of motion, notice of decision. The first one being 4.1, community vaccination reporting.
I'll move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Then
I just got a comment.
We got a seconder?
Yeah, mate.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
so, Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Mileto, sorry, Councillor Whitman. You've got the floor, Councillor
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. So I put this motion up about 3 weeks ago, and subsequently, myself, Mr. Mayor, and council staff and frontline workers have been doing a tremendous job over the last few weeks, getting the message out into the community about why we need to be vaccinated, and so the motion really is now a message to reiterate that message that council have been doing, and the work that staff and the frontline people have been doing. And certainly our vaccination rates, had a look at them today, they're like first shot around 70, almost 80%, and double vaxxed is almost 50%. So we're doing a great job, and it's good to see. And if I had one comment through you to CEO, great information on the webpage by staff. If we could probably, a lot of those links go directly to the New South Wales website, and you sort of got to navigate through them, and they're sort of if you're not familiar with that sort of thing, you probably find it hard to get the information. Is it possible just to get one of the team to grab that information and post it on Facebook, a couple of times a week, just for ease purposes, so people have to navigate through the maze to find the information themselves? That's the only comment I have, Mr. Mayor. Wonderful job.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Whitten. Look, I certainly understand the spirit of the notice of motion, and I'm not against the motion per se. However, I believe that it may be a duplication of information that has already been provided on the Public Health website, and that information contained on the Public Health website is constantly updated as required. My concern here is that I'm also interested to know how this notice of motion would enhance or value add to what has already been displayed. It's also a question whether or not it would be who would be responsible, whether it would be a responsible use of council resources be continually doing that when it's already been provided by Public Health. So
can I answer that, Mr. Mayor?
When I finish, you can. And given that the issue already appears...
I didn't know you were the Mayor, Councillor Miletto.
Hold on, Councillor. Just finish.
Thank you. I was just talking, and as you would like, I'd let you finish before I butted in. So if you would...
I might join in too.
Well, you're throwing your toys out of the trolley, Mr. Councillor Miletto. Pressure getting to you again, is it?
Come on, Councillor Whitten. Councillor Miletto, you have the
Be nice.
Thank you, and thanks for that feedback, Councillor Whitten. Appreciate it. And my point was that it would appear that this notice of motion is already being addressed in the council comments. So basically, what I'm suggesting is that by appearing on the Public Health website, that is more up to date for people to access than council employees being responsible of updating it when they have the time. That was my point. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Whitten, you want to make a comment?
Well, my comment was, if Councillor Miletto listened to what I said in the first place, Mr. Mayor,
No, just make your point.
was that this motion was put in 3 weeks ago, prior to any of that information being available. Now it is available.
Right.
And
and
not everybody has access to the internet. There are elderly who don't have computers. They don't have that information. We need to get the information out to them. So, as I say, this information wasn't available.
All right.
It is now.
Councillor Nugent, then Councillor Duffy. Yeah, Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support the motion. I understand where Councillor Whitten's coming from. He's talking about value adding to what the information that's already there. It's not necessarily easily accessible for all, and it's about council sort of showing, taking a lead, setting an example, encouraging the community to go out and get vaccinated. I don't think it would be a huge impost on council staff, and it's probably only going to be for a few weeks to maybe, to a couple of months. And we're going to be at sort of 80% double dose, double vax. So I don't think it's a huge impost on staff, and I think it's just about making the information more accessible and encouraging the community to continue doing the great work that they're doing.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listen, I want to support Councillor Whitten with this with regards to the elderly. They're the ones that are most feared that have the most fear in their eyes, because when they listen to the at 11 o'clock news, they see that they're giving condolences to the families, and most of them are in their 70s and 80s and 90s. And we have a lot of those people in our communities in the homes and things like that. So I think it's extremely important, and they cannot operate the technology that half of us can't, or I can't operate as properly either. There's a lot of it there. So I think it's extremely important. But I also look at the word that Councillor Whitten uses in the background as protect our community. Now, the government of the day, which I won't question anyway, says to protect our community. When the cases appear, right, when they appear in our town, example, the 6 chaps that come up here from Sydney that were let up here without any questioning, where were they staying? Where was the protection from the government to tell us where those people were staying to protect our elderly, protect our young? And I'm not asking for the address. I'm asking for our elderly everyone to be protected, because that can happen. I don't know how this thing jumps around. It's easy to transmit. But again, I go right back to the very start. You know, this comes out here because it's been brought out here every time, and we are suffering. Our community is suffering. We see. I couldn't even take my family up to the cemetery on Father's Day, and other people couldn't visit their families on Father's Day. Yet some people have a bit of a choice, so they can do it. Now, I know people in this town that are at this very moment suffering, losing their businesses, and we're getting phone calls of them every day. And Councillor Taylor goes down this past way as well. You know, I can't get a haircut, but some other people can get one. You know, I'm not real happy about the way the whole thing has been handled. And I think the Department of Health can give us a lot more information as to where they are. And are these cases related to other clusters that happen here? I know that Jamie Newman's been in the news as regards to what's been happening within his community. But you know, what about all of us? That's what I'm saying. I'm supporting it of this 100%. But I think they need to be a bit more honest with us. And to think that you're going to get probably 80% by such and such a date, to me, is a bit of a pipe dream. And Mr. Mayor, after this resolution is done, I've got a matter arising as regards to the ensuring of protection for everyone as regards to this.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, look, Councillor Duffy has indicated he's got a matter arising. Look, the vaccination rates, as Councillor Whitten indicated in Orange, are wonderful at this stage, and congratulations to the community of Orange. But as Councillor Duffy has indicated, I've received a large amount of phone calls from people in business who are ringing me, and I'm sure other councillors have received it, wanting to know if we know when we're going to come out of lockdown as far as Orange is concerned. There's a number of people who have indicated to me that they're in dire straits with their businesses. They can only just hang on at the moment, and it's I know it's something that's not unique to Orange. Imagine businesses in Sydney, the amount of time they've been in lockdown. On the entire eastern seaboard at the moment, basically apart from Queensland, is in lockdown. But the fact of the matter, Mr. Mayor, is I was extremely disappointed today when I heard that the government were contemplating putting Orange in the same boat as Sydney. I think there was 1,100 and something cases in Sydney today, and Orange had 1. And my understanding of that case is that they know where that case originated from, and they've connected that case. So what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor, I think we should do all we can as the civic leaders of this community to protest in the strongest possible terms if the government does tie us into Sydney. There were rumours a couple of weeks ago that we were going to be tied to Dubbo. Now they're saying Sydney. That could effectively mean that with 1 case recorded here today, we could be in lockdown till, who knows, November. So the business people out there are hurting. I've had business people who have basically nearly been in tears on the phone to me telling me that they've worked, some of them 20 odd years, to build their businesses up, and they're just hanging on by the skin of their teeth. People want to send their children back to school. And I really have to scratch my head at the logic. I know I support the fact that we're in a pandemic. I support the fact that restrictions have to be put in place. But, gee, don't tie us to the metropolitan area. Don't tie us to Dubbo. Dubbo wasn't tied to Orange when we were in lockdown in July when we had one case come through. So I'm hoping that the government will see sense when they do assess who will come out of lockdown and who won't come out of lockdown. I'm not saying that they'll let us out of lockdown this Friday. I think that would probably be an optimistic view. But certainly hearing from I think the Deputy Premier comments today and it reported in the press that Orange may be in lockdown as long as Sydney is extremely disappointing and extremely disheartening to a lot of the community out there. And look, we need to give our community hope. And Orange, as Councillor Duffy pointed out, it wasn't Orange's fault that we had 6 people come from Sydney who weren't entitled to be here. It wasn't Orange's fault that someone jumped on a bus and came from Dubbo down to Orange. And I don't see why we should have to suffer any more than we have to. We all have to do our bit. We all have gone through basic hell with these lockdowns. But the fact of the matter is, treat us individually. And the Orange community have been exemplary, the way they've been getting tested, the way they've been, as Councillor Whitten's motion has indicated, the way they've been getting vaccinated. But the politicians, Mr Mayor, continue to get their salaries, and the senior public servants continue to get their salaries. And I'd love to be able to refer some of the people who have called me over the last couple of days to the Premier or the Deputy Premier and let them explain their case to them, and them on their $300,000, $400,000 salaries, that they should endure another month or two of lockdown when we've got one single case here in Orange. Now, I'm not saying that we can rest on our laurels. I'm not saying that we've got rid of COVID in Orange. By no means am I saying that. But we have one case today, and hopefully we'll have 0 cases for the end of the week. Who knows? But when we've got one case, to lock the entire community down and then make a statement that we are locked Sydney is wrong, Mr Mayor. It's wrong.
You've made your case, Councillor Taylor. Look, I'll speak next. Look, just in relation to the 3 motions that Council obtained vaccination percentages. Can I just say, Councillor Whitten, over a month ago, I started the campaign to get vaccination figures printed, and now it is printed right across the state, and they're done very, very much up to date. They are done. They're printed in the newsprint. They're on the Orange app. They're on television stations. They're in the Telegraph. They're in the Herald. They're in the Australian. They're in the CWD. Don't think they're in Orange Life. They go on every single radio station and they go on television. I don't know how many other places they could actually possibly go. And it's been doing that for well over 3 weeks. This didn't start 3 weeks ago. I think that we've been pushing very, very hard through all of those things, through our staff and even our own website, for both our testing regimes and our vaccination things. And that's why that's where ours are at the moment, and they are quite high. They're not the best in the state now, but it depends on proportion of population too, by the way. And I think the campaigns that we've been involved with and what we've been pushing is, again, leading the way. I've also asked, just to let you know, and it will come around shortly, that I want the percentages of active cases versus inactive cases now. People have no longer got COVID, right?
Good idea.
Hold it. What I sent out to you, I hope you read it, and it explains to you what the red, amber and green means. And red means that there are people out in the community that were contagious and have obviously could have infected other people. And a lot of that's still being chased up as we speak right now. The amber ones in there say that they could have been. They're still doing the contact tracing. There's a lot of work that goes into this. And the green one, they know that they're actually at home. From the point of a lockdown, look, no one's more disappointed than me. I can tell you it affects my business, it affects my family, and affects everyone and elderly families. And I think some people are forgetting. I lost my mother last year, right bang in the middle of this COVID thing, and I couldn't see her for 3 months. So I do understand what elderly people are going through. I have a mother-in-law in a nursing home at the moment, and I do know the stress that they're actually going under. But I think the most important thing that I'd just like to stress, I don't see this as political point scoring. I think this is about a war that we've got to win. And as a community, it's us responsibility to get out there and be proactive in every possible way that we actually can to get out of it. And this is opinion only, by the way, I think the only way that we're going to get out of lockdown, and the only way is we're going to be living with COVID, the same as we live with flu, and it'll be related back to our vaccination levels, unfortunately. And there's going to be people that don't believe in getting vaccinated. There'll be people that, for medical reasons, can't get vaccinated. So who knows what that will mean coming out of lockdown. One thing I do agree with, I don't think that we should be compared to the suburbs in Sydney that they're actually talking about. It's quite different, and I'll be taking that matter up, and I already have. Today, I sent an email off to the Deputy Premier's office saying I took that as offensive, making that remark, comparing us into Dubbo, into Sydney. It's quite different, but I don't want to see us get in and involved with them and us against Dubbo and Bathurst and so forth. As you would know, you would have friends that actually work in Bathurst and Dubbo and vice versa. This way, you forgot one of the cases here in Orange is a person that works at Bathurst Jail, actually, as an interest. We also know that possibly some of the active cases that we've had in Orange came from a person that happened to visit down in Sydney, a suburb them, and perhaps they shouldn't have. So we don't know all the ins and outs and all the intricacies of actually how some people have got infected. But I think it is important to at least respect one thing. We don't know everything about this COVID, particularly the Delta strain. We thought we were out of it. We don't know everything about it. Heaven forbid, I hope there's just not another mutation and they come up with another one. But I think it's very, very important. I can't think of any more our staff can do. I will say that the information that comes out through the Department of Health, I've tried to get hold of that more relevant information and put it in a simpler form. And that's what's going in the paper and going on radio and going on television. And what our staff has done is tried to simplify that to me. Now, I do know that in 2 nursing homes at least, I can't speak for all of them, that they put a little newsletter together in fairly, in big print and everything in the nursing home for all the residents, where my mother-in-law is actually, which is quite a large one. They give them a twice weekly update with everything that's actually going on. And the vaccination rates in our nursing homes has been quite extraordinary, actually. So I would hope at the end of this week that we can say that. The one thing that I will say to fellow councillors as a personal thing, I will be really and truly jumping up and down if we get to that near that 80% and everything, and they change the ground rules. I'll be quite upset about it, because one of the premises that I've been really putting so much time and effort into is getting us to that 80% vaccinated, to be quite frank. So thank you, Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, just a quick comment question. The Central Western Daily have been publishing vaccination rates on the front of their paper on a daily basis, but they've only got New South Wales and Australian rates. Is there any? Could we not approach them and ask, could they include an orange figure in there as well?
I can certainly do that. Look, just in explanation that too, can I just explain this, which I tried to in the memo I sent to all of you. There's 2 sources of the information. If it's a vaccination through the public health system, that information is gathered federally. If it's from doctors in a pharmacy, etc., at state, then you've got to try and get someone to get both those lots of figures together. So there's a lag time of probably about 5 days and we get those, and certainly I've given them to and that's what the media, the wireless radio, I should say, and television have been quoting. That's the most up-to-date information you can get.
That's a bit weird because you've got to give your Medicare details. So that's federal.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, a question on vaccinations. I went past the DPI site yesterday morning, and obviously there were literally hundreds of people there lined up. But I went past it at the same time this morning, and there was no one in the car park. Have they changed the configuration there, or they just
they have changed it? No, not so much configuration, but yesterday there was a few logistic things that they look at. I think about somewhere between 600 and 650 yesterday, and about 650 today.
Okay. Yep.
Mr. Waddell, maybe, which is fantastic. What they did do, instead of having a lot of people standing there in the queue, they sort of cut them off and said, "Look, if you go home, and we'll let you know if the line's getting quicker and going through. We'll let you know." And they actually did it. They cut off at about 3:30 because they shut down at 4:30 to get the actual people through. If we average that 600, just say 600, that'll be 4,200. And I've also put a proposal up to the government that I want, and I've got support from the MLC for this area, and I've sent the same thing. I'd love to see us get permission to run one of those drive-in vaccination hubs. And I think it would really help the tradies and a lot of people if they could ring up, make an appointment, perhaps on their way to work, just drive through Wade Park, get it in the arm, or morning tea time or lunch time at the trial they've done at Dubbo. Has worked extremely well, which I'm a bit cranky about because we put the idea up, as Mr. Waddell will know. How long ago did we put that idea up? Because that's what they did in New York and Sons, all the tradies. That's how they got all the tradies in. They got them in driving through with their big pickup trucks and getting vaccinated. So
I'm happy to move a resolution.
Give the trial to Dubbo, but I've asked that we have it here because we do have a lot of trades and people that are still working and might find it, morning tea or lunchtime suits them. It's very, very difficult to get away at other times. So we're pushing that one. Okay, look, I'll put the motion, but I think we've done what the motion's asking, to be quite frank. So in favour? Against?
Create a debate, Mr. Mayor. That was the general idea.
All right, thank you. Now we're on to 4.
No, Mr. Chairman, I've got a matter arising. My matter arising concerns is looking for actually a COVID safe election from the Premier and the Minister for Local Government. When you consider that what the Electoral Commission has said as regards to universal postal voting and things like that, they can't guarantee and don't have the resources.
No, that's not they can't guarantee. They are not doing it.
They're not doing it. Well, okay, that's a bit harder than what I was going to go. But I think we should write to the Premier and the Minister for Local Government and our JO looking for support that they can ensure us to have a COVID-19 free election. And I think if we go well into October, we're going to be heading on.
You're moving that way, Councillor Duffy. You're moving that way, Councillor Duffy.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
I'll second you on that. So you're moving that we ask the Premier that they can ensure a COVID safe election.
Yep.
Yes, yeah,
yes.
And the Minister for Local Government and get support of our JO. I know the Bathursts are doing it, but and in that fashion as well. But as I said, it's going to get to the stage where we're going to be putting our if we can't go down that pathway, the electoral office have said we're going to be putting our friends and neighbours and political friends could be putting them in jeopardy, and that's none of us want that. I know there are councillors who want to hurry up and get out of here, but we've got to put our health first, like the government has been doing, even though I mightn't agree with them sometimes. But that we've got to do exactly the same thing here.
Yeah. Okay. All in favour of that? I think that's
sounds good.
Anyone against? Look, is it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
With that in mind, with your permission, can I put something together with the Chief Executive Officer and we can send you out a draft? Okay, so you're all happy with what's going on.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Or Councillor Duffy could sit up tonight and write something and send it out to as a draft to us all.
You're a glutton for punishment, Mr. Mayor.
If we put it on Facebook, we'd be good at it.
All in favour, I think.
He wouldn't know how to do that, would he?
He'd have to do it with emojis.
Leave him alone, poor bugger.
I move on to 4.2.
How come you don't warn them? You give me more warning than Will Robertson.
You deserve it, Councillor Duffy. They're well deserved.
Okay, we move on to 4.2, state member contributions. Councillor Romano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I touched on this at the last meeting. I'm hoping this doesn't bring much debate tonight. It's just simply asking that we acknowledge the contribution that our state member, Phil Donato, has done in securing the sports precinct /stadium in line with proof of the Hansard that he did ask the Premier for the $25 million. And I have noted that he hasn't really got, not just my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, he hasn't really got much recognition for what he done in the background. So I'd like to see a letter written by council, by the CEO, sent to him, acknowledging that we're very grateful for his contribution towards the sports precinct.
Thanks, Councillor Romano. We've got
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, second, Councillor Duffy.
Yes.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Turner, then Councillor Mileto. I think Councillor, at that stage,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking against the motion, Councillor Romano said, the contribution that the state member has made in obtaining the funds. What contribution did he make?
Oh, would you like me to answer that?
If you look at Hansard on the back of the paper there, it says the Premier has already been committed to the 25 million for the sports complex when it was out on the Northern Distributor. All the local members said is, when can the people of Orange expect that to be delivered? And in answer, the Premier said, I assure the member for Orange that the government will deliver on its election commitment. They had made that commitment before the local member even raised it in Parliament. So what has the local member done to obtain the sports precinct? It was already committed by the Premier.
Perhaps, Mr. Turner, Councillor Turner, would you like to
hold it, Councillor Romano.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Turner, would you like to remind us what the Premier's commitment was, or what the promise was that she put to the media in Robinson Park? What was the comment that she made?
I'm going on what the Premier answered to the member at the time.
Councillor, I'll just shut it down there. Who's the other person I just said had their hand up? Councillor Mileto and then Councillor Duffy. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support the spirit of the letter, and I also acknowledge the comments that Councillor Turner has made. But I think we can go a bit further, and with indulging Councillor Romano, I'd like to think that would be appropriate that letters are also sent to the Deputy Premier, Mr. John Ballalara, MLC Sam Fairway, to acknowledge their ongoing contribution to making the sports precinct become a reality. Also, a letter be sent to the Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, for honouring her commitment to the people of Orange. We would also, I think we should also acknowledge the dedication and hard work of council staff who have also contributed substantially to making the sporting precinct a reality. And I would like to move.
Point of order.
Councillor Romano, let Councillor finish.
He's off the track.
No, it's not.
We have one state member, and my notice of motion refers to the state member. Now, if you want to put a motion up for your Premier, go ahead. But you've got to remember.
I'm asking for an amendment.
Councillor
Mr. Mayor, a lot of people contributed to the acquisition of the money for the sporting stadium. I can't see any harm. Why wouldn't we support it?
Hold it. I'm from Chair. I'm going to move an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I want to speak.
Hold it. You can speak then, Councillor. I'd move an amendment that the council write to the state member, the Deputy Premier, the Premier and Sam Faraway, thanking them all for the concerted effort they put into securing the funding for the sports precinct. I got a second, Councillor Munro? Or
No, I'm not
You're
second.
playing with yourself. Councillor Mileto, second. Okay,
Can I-
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, can I just ask for a point of clarification? I think that's what was moved at the previous meeting, wasn't it? Something similar like that. But it didn't include the state member. But I'll leave that one alone. But I just want to go back to the resolution. I don't mind where the money comes from. I don't care how much comes, as long as it's enough. And it's a wonderful opportunity. And I'll thank anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
I couldn't give a bugger. It's absolutely fantastic that we got it. But I do remember a couple of things. Is number one, it first of all came from the state government that if we elected a certain person, we'd get $25 million. Someone must have changed their mind somewhere around there.
Yes, they did, Councillor Duffy. They did.
I don't care who it was. It's fantastic news that the was changed, right?
Well, it wasn't the state member that changed the mind, I can tell
Mr.
you.
Mayor, give yourself a warning. What I will say now is I do question the Premier's quotation, what she says here. She said she congratulated the member for his large primary vote. And she noted that the Labor Party only got 10%. Well, she should get a figures right. They only got 9%. So I think it's important. I'll bag out both sides if they deserve it.
Very illuminating. Very illuminating.
Councillor Munro. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I know. Look, there's a lot of people here that need to be thanked. If you want to thank anyone, why don't we thank the little people like Marge Bollinger, like the people that fought for what they wanted at that election and what we tried to save as far as amalgamations and far as the dogs.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
We're talking about the sports precinct.
Exactly, the sports precinct. We're not talking about.
I'm talking about the sports precinct and how it came about.
We don't get paid enough money for this.
If it wasn't for people fighting for what we thought was right, this wouldn't have come. This $25 million for sports precinct was an election promise to try and win Orange back. Now let's be fair dinkum about it, and that's good. We got it, and thank you, Phil Donato, thank you, Premier, thank you, Marge Bollinger, and all the people that fought to save this electorate. Because if we hadn't have done that, it would have been an amalgamated setup. We would have lost a greyhound industry that we all
hold it, Councillor Munro.
This is where it all came from, and it's all political. And let's think about it, and let's thank everybody. We got it. So good. Thank you.
Right.
I've seen greyhounds out there.
Hold it, Councillor Hamlin. You had your hand up. I think
that's the fact.
I had my hand up to figure out what Councillor Munro was talking about.
Okay.
Talking about the pan liquors.
I'd like to speak to my amendment. I think in this case there, you're dead right, Councillor Munro. The comment was said by the Premier in Robson Park. The state elections were held. The seat of Orange was won by Mr. Donato comfortably for the Shooters Party and everything, but then there was a lot of lobby, and that was through to the Premier and through Sam Faraway to the Deputy Premier, through to the Premier, to make us stick to that $25 million. And that was successful. And I think those people are just as important to thank as our state member. And by the way, I've thanked the state member, I don't know on how many occasions, and I always acknowledge and invite him along to all sorts of things. So
yeah, I'm talking about the sports precinct.
Thanks to the forum. Yep, for the sports precinct.
Okay.
So I will move the amendment first. All in favour of the amendment, that would write letters off to those four people. Hands, please.
Everyone.
We've got two. We know what it's lost. I'll put the notice of motion. 1, 2, 3. We've got 3. Against? 4. Against? Hands up, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 against. The motion is lost. Thank you. We move on to 5.1.
Can I have a recount?
No, you're not.
How do you get
Report.
five?
Thank you. Thank
There's
you.
10 councillors, Mr. Mayor. That the count you just called was 5-3. How do you get that?
I didn't count them, Councillor.
There's
Taylor.
10. There's
Can
10.
we have a recount,
Well, can we have a recount?
Oh. Well, put your hands up, Councillor Taylor. Please.
There are 10. There are 10 councillors, Mr. Mayor.
Against
Not 8.
for the motion. Hands up.
For the motion.
Yeah.
1, 2,
And I did
3,
4.
4. Against.
5.
Hands up.
5 was
It was
hands.
5.
Councillor
I'm up.
Hammond.
I'm up.
Councillor, are you
Hold
in,
it.
Councillor?
Put your hands up for.
Right.
1, 2, 3,
1,
4, 5.
2, 3, 4. Councillor Hamling's gone for it now. 5. There's been a change. See?
No,
Against.
my hand.
No, there was no change.
Against. Thank you.
1, 2, 3. I can't see, Mr. Mayor. Can you see Kathy
1,
Thomas?
2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5.
5.
There's got to be.
Five or
When I
Okay.
did maths in school.
I'm using my
5
cast
plus 4
vote
equals
against it, so the motion is lost. Same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Good result.
Hey.
Yep.
Hey, how's
Okay,
you do
we
a
move on to
division on Zoom?
5.1, general
It's
reports.
it's good to see a bit of good old-fashioned politics back in the chamber. Hey, Councillor Turner.
Can you
5.1.
Councillor
He
Taylor?
lost the other one.
5.1, voting delegates for the local government annual conference. I don't know, when is it held? There we go.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor,
clarification
I'll
on
move the
that.
recommendation.
Yeah, just a clarification.
No,
Just a
Councillor Taylor, point of clarification.
Just a clarification on that. It says here about it goes for 1 hour. Is that right? Online.
That's what I read too, and I was.
That's-
geez,
that-
that's a pity.
Yeah, it's got to be a
It's
time
only,
limit.
it's only the voting. It's only the voting.
Oh, the voting. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
The actual conference is in February next year.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I'd like to
I'm,
move the
I'm with you. Yeah,
recommendation.
yeah, yeah.
So only the voting for the board.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
Yep.
move the recommendation and move that yourself and Councillor Duffy be voters.
How many votes can we have?
3.
I nominate.
Finish you
I
want.
also nominate Councillor Whitten. That's 3.
Okay.
That gives us 3.
That's 3.
I'll,
I'd like to,
Ollie, can I nominate Councillor Nugent?
and I'd like to nominate Councillor Miletto.
Leto,
Well, you got 5.
Nugent.
Well, I'll move a motion that it be the Mayor, Councillor Whitten, and
No,
myself.
no, just hold a second so I can get that down. It was Councillor Miletto, Councillor Nugent, Councillor Kidd, Councillor Whitten,
And Councillor Duffy.
Councillor
Councillor
Duffy,
Duffy.
and myself. Okay. So we can have 3. We can have 3 and 3 reserves, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. You're going to have to put out a vote.
I'm going to move that we have the Mayor, Councillor Whitten, and myself.
Second it.
So that is a motion. That is a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Right.
Is there a, there's a seconder of that motion?
Yeah, it was Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I
Taylor,
second
okay,
it.
yep.
We'll
So-
try that motion. All in favour? Hands up,
One,
please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
The motion is 1. Thank you. And look, please keep those names there on the book in case something happens with COVID or any sorts of things or whatever. That those people are the reserves. Okay.
Matter arising, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Councillor Nugent. Yeah.
Okay, so the main conference itself is in February next year when they'll debate motions from councils.
Yeah.
Given the timing of the election, and by the time people get sworn in, etc., it's going to be really difficult for the new council to get motions together to go to that meeting. Is there any reason why this council can't put up motions to that conference over the next over the next couple of months?
I couldn't see any reason why not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't see any reason why not. Yeah.
And on that point, Mr. Mayor, I would imagine that the people who are putting themselves up for election as far as local government New South Wales are extremely confident of being re-elected.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point.
So if they don't get elected, it's like it leaves them.
Do you think it might be part of their platform to get elected?
Yeah, I think it might have something to do with
think
it. Don't want to be cynical, but yes.
Well, can I ask a question then? If that's the case, and you, Mr. Mayor, have indicated you don't intend running again.
That's got nothing to do with it. Councillor Levy, that's
just
got
saying,
nothing.
my next
Sorry,
question.
point of order. It's got nothing to do with this debate and got nothing to do with what this issue is.
Okay, I'm just
We're talking about the LGSA candidates.
Yeah,
not
talking
us.
about the candidates in the actual election.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah.
I might run.
You might. Wouldn't surprise us. Yeah, wouldn't.
Mr. Waddell.
So just to clarify for Councillor Nugent, Mr. Chair, I'll take motions from councillors from this council until the end of October. At that point, you'll go into caretaker mode and I won't take any more. I think that's fair. That's 6 more weeks or so. Or no, more than that.
That's reasonable. Got 2, 3, got 3 meetings.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, I would tend to think that would be a great idea, but I would tend to think that those motions should be put in front of the new council to see whether they endorse them.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, happy with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. We move on to 5.2, which is a strategic policy review, enterprise risk management.
Happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor. Councillor
Nugent, second, Councillor Turner. All in favour? Hands, please.
Councillor Hammond's got a finger up.
3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Got 10. Thank you. 5.3 is progress report operational plan, 6 months, 1st of January to the 30th of June 2000.
Do the recommendation.
Second,
Councillor Whitten, I think it was. Second, Councillor Munro.
Thank you.
All in favour, hands please.
Councillor, Mr. Mayor.
You've got a question, sorry.
Oh, yeah, just had a question on a few of the items in there. We had a speaker earlier on tonight, seems like a long time ago, but Dr. Rawson was speaking about the mountain bike trails, and he raised some interesting points about the costs of proceeding further with the investigations and then the costs of potential costs of offsets. I'm not necessarily looking for a comment from staff tonight about that, but I think it's something that we should be be well and truly taking into consideration as we go through the next steps. But he did raise a question about when the public will be able to see the full details of the plans that are going up to the minister, or when the next stage of community consultation will occur, when people will have the opportunity to see what's being put forward and to have an input. And I just wonder whether I can ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO about the process from here.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've got Mr. Warner on the line here. I'll ask him to give us a quick status report on the mountain bike project. From me, you will soon get a briefing on the project, and those documents spoken about will soon be made public. Mr. Warner.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Where we're at the moment is we're just finalising the documents. Many of the ones that Dr. Rawson referred to tonight, he's correct in what he was saying about those documents being required for the submission. They'll shortly go through the state, through the pathway that he referred to, which is the pathway that we're following for approval. Once they go on exhibition, once they're lodged, they go on exhibition for comment. as would any normal development application. Whilst it's a state significant development application, it still has the same processes around feedback and submissions from the public. So they'll all become public documents that people can access and provide comments to. We'll likely conduct another public forum. We're in the process now of finalising the cultural heritage assessment, where the report has been completed and has gone back to the registered Aboriginal parties that have been part of the project now for some months. There's 9 of those in total. Once that process is finalised, that will also be made public. So essentially, we're at that point where we're just finalising some of that documentation. Will soon be lodged and then it'll be made available to the public for comment. It'll also go via Cabon as the process, as the site actually sits in Cabon, as we all know. So we'll go through their planning pathways as well as a referral process. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for people to see it and comment on it and provide feedback, and all those documents will be available.
Okay, thank you. On page 59, there's a note about social or delivering affordable and social housing at the top of the page there. It does talk about improvements in affordable housing needs analysis, and also makes reference to the council or local housing strategy. Is that needs analysis? There's been a needs analysis done, and is that going to be part of the local housing strategy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll answer that one. There is a provision, or a number of provisions in the that'll come before council once we get the housing strategy draft finalised. That does talk about affordable housing. As far as where that information comes from and what forms the basis of the needs analysis, very much focused on the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Back to the 2016 census, which it does identify housing that's where their home income is spending more than 30% on their rental needs. So that is the basis of parts of the housing strategy, which will come back to council, but it's not a separate needs analysis on its own.
Okay, thank you. So we, in terms of the local housing strategy, the timeframe for the next steps with that?
Okay, the proposal being to bring that to council. We'll have some information forums just for the councillors to bring up to speed on the process, with the expectation to bring it to a council meeting in October, and then put that out on public exhibition, probably from November to February, say. So this council will get to see the draft document and set some direction, with the new council on board next year to adopt the strategic policy itself after the public consultation.
Thank you. And the third one, Mr. Mayor, is on page 62, to do with the, or talks about Renewable Energy Action Plan, and it talks about funding having been received for a Renewable Energy Action Plan. And in the light of our earlier discussion about solar farm and solar farms in the Orange LGA, I think a Renewable Action Plan is a fairly important document. I know we are doing a lot of work. We have done a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work in terms of renewable energy for council facilities, but I think that Renewable Energy Action Plan probably would be an important document to tie it all together. So just wondering what the current status of that is.
I can answer this, Mr. Chair. Council received some DPIE funding to prepare a Renewable Energy Action Plan, and we've got a draft document which is excellent that the consultants helped us with. I think you'll find that'll go through your ESCI group next meeting before coming to council. It defines a whole another tranche of renewable projects, but not just solar projects, which we can implement over the next year or two. Very good document. state-sponsored, but it doesn't deal with the wider city, if that's what you're getting at.
So it's not just, but it deals with council operations only. It doesn't really deal with the wider. And I noticed that there was a call for items for the next ESCI. I think went out today or yesterday or today. So so that'll be on the agenda for that next meeting.
I believe so. Lindsay Hall, correct.
Okay, I'll check in with Lindsay. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Can't we move on?
Okay, like just before we do, I'd like to flag that I'm putting up a motion for the next council meeting that, along with New South Wales Farms and another lot of organisations now, is that they should not use the term farm for a solar farm. It's not a farm. It's an industrial building, if you like. No different from the
certainly not a farm.
It's not a farm. And I'm putting up a motion that we shouldn't refer to them as farms because they're not farms. It's an insult to what a farm actually is. It's a solar institution. Okay. Thank you. All in favour? Operational plan. Against? Thank you. We move down to 5.5, which is the tourism services contract, Orange 360.
Mr. Mayor, I declared an interest in that one. Councillor Hamling.
Councillor Hamling.
Me as well, Mr. Mayor.
And myself and Councillor Whitten. So, Councillor Taylor, would you chair this item, please?
Yeah, okay, Mr. Mayor.
You got it?
Yeah, 5.4 on that one. Yeah.
5.4, and I'm happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Been moved by Councillor Nugent.
Can we wait till they move?
Seconded by Councillor Turner.
Wait there, you've got to wait until we get faded out.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Can we have the mayor removed?
Yeah.
You've been wanting that for a long time.
That's a unanimous vote.
I'm going to drop out. I'm going to drop out shortly. I'm on about 5% battery, so I just warn you.
We better get a vote going. One,
Yeah.
two, three. Yeah.
You're right. Right to go. It's been moved by Councillor Nugent. It's been seconded by Councillor Turner. Is there any discussion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, I just want
Councillor Duffy.
I just want to say I support it. If it was going any further than June 30, 22, I wouldn't support it. But it gives the new council the opportunity to say whether they want to go in the same direction or another direction. I will, if I happen to get re-elected again or I do stand, I do believe that I probably would still support it going past that date because I do think they are gradually going in the right direction. But I'll support it till June 22.
Okay. Any other discussion? Anyone? I can't see anyone. Councillor Munro, I think.
No, that's all right. I just asked you to.
So no one else. I'm trying to look. There's no one else wants to speak. Okay, I'll put the motion. Those for, against, carried. Call the mayor back on and Councillor Whitten.
No. Jeez. I know that. I don't know. Wait there. I've got to get the screen going again.
We can see you. We can hear you.
Right. That's finished. Councillor Taylor, that one?
Yep.
5.54, sorry. We move down to 5.5 is the community stimulus.
Move.
Option.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favour, hands please. Thank you. Against? Nope. We move down to 5.6, which is the childcare fees lockdown.
I'm going to move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Nugent.
Seconded, Councillor Hamling, Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Nugent, second Councillor Hamling. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. The Chief Executive Officer will advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Council.
Mr. Mayor, I have no such submissions.
Thank you. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993 and the Local Government General Regulations of 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A (2) of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and the public. They are item 6.1, sale of industrial land parts lot C120045. The reason for confidentiality, this item is classified confidential under provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposing to conduct business. 6.2 is Qantas, is a request for assistance. This item is classified as confidential under provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed in the public for business relating to C, information that will disclose confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.3 is Jacobin Place Works in Kind agreement. This item is classified confidential under provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.4, this item is classified as confidential under provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law.